Hey guys. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Time Traveled to the Future. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 10 Mastermind. How much time at sea would they have to endure before reaching the Lightning Country? Mato Guy, elite jounin of Konoha, was not feeling very well. Many days at sea had still not acclimated him to the boat's rocking and dipping, and tonight he was doing his best to keep watch while leaning his head over the deck's railing at the same time. Guy-san, Aoba called from behind him. You should go on to bed. We'll be fine out here without you. No! Guy lifted his head to demonstrate that he was perfectly fine, but a wave of nausea swept over him, and he quickly had to lean back over the railing again. Yamato sighed. I've never seen anyone stay seasick for so long. I'm keeping a watch out on the water. Guy hacked out, staring intensely out into the night. If we come under attack, I'll be the first to know. Not if they attack the other side, Aoba pointed out. Tsugi-san would sense someone coming long before we could see them. Someone could fool my sensing abilities, Tsugi said modestly. But if they went through the trouble of doing that, they'd probably hide their appearance as well. Aoba nodded. Right. So, Guy-san, you really don't have to force yourself. Wait. Tsugi suddenly turned to stare out over the water. I can sense someone. There are 2 people approaching rapidly. You have a bad sense of humor, Tsugi-san. Guy sulked. I didn't know you were the kind of man to make fun of your comrades. No, I really do. They're getting closer. I am sure they're headed for us. Tsugi's eyes widened in alarm. One of them is extremely powerful. At least Kage level. What? Yamato yelped. They didn't have any more time to discuss it, because 2 figures leapt into the boat right after Yamato spoke. Guy gave a spirited battle cry and went at them with a severe leaf hurricane, only he couldn't quite put enough energy into it and ended up flat on the deck after a sharp heel to the face. Calm down, Guy, Tsunade said, putting her foot down gracefully after the kick. Shizen was standing beside her. Tsunade-sama? Yamato exclaimed. Tsunade held a finger up to her lips. Sure. I assume Naruto is sleeping right now? Yes, but… Aoba said, bewildered. What is going on? I don't want to wake him. He might get suspicious if he knows that I came here personally. Shizen and I are on our way to a meeting in Kumogakure to discuss preparations for the war. Have you received the message we sent about Naruto? Yamato shook his head as if to pull himself together. No. But we recently went through a dangerous passage that has been known to throw off messenger birds' sense of direction. It could have gone astray. Tsunade and Shizen exchanged a look. Is there something going on with my rival's young pupil? Guy said, getting up from the deck in a wobbly kind of way. We assumed you'd send word if he disappeared. Shizen stepped forward. But have you noticed anything different or strange about him? Anything that might suggest he's been replaced with an imposter? An imposter? Guy shouted, and everyone shushed him. I don't believe so, Yamato said. I planted several tracking seeds on him so he couldn't get away. I mean, so we could always be sure where he was. They're undetectable to anyone but me, so I don't see how any imposters would know about them. There really are 2 of them, then, Shizen said worriedly to Tsunade. Tsunade-sama, if you could explain, Aoba said. All right. Tsunade motioned them closer. Everyone huddled in, and she recounted everything that happened in a low voice. It seems most likely that Yakushi Kabuto is the one behind it, she concluded quietly. We lost track of his movements shortly before all this started. Frankly, he could be anywhere by now. What are we going to do? Yamato shook his head in disbelief. I'm on the way to a meeting of the 5 Kage, Tsunade said. We'll have to figure out where to hide him. The other Kage are not going to like this either, but I don't think anyone will be surprised the enemy is capable of doing this. I just hope they don't do it again, Tsugi said. Do you think he has the ability to control the people he summons, like the Edo Tensei? The Edo Tensei required a tag to be planted in the victim's head to control them, Tsunade said. I can't deny it's a possibility for this technique as well, but with Naruto at least, everything seems fine. Well, almost everything. She looked at Yamato. I tested his chakra and it had traces of Mokutan in it. I'm not sure why. If it's Kabuto, there are any number of reasons, Yamato said grimly. Tsunade crossed her arms. At any rate, keep an eye on Naruto and make sure there are no changes. But be careful not to let on something is wrong. He might notice something no matter what we do. I'm not sure what kind of connection, if any, the two versions of him have. But it'll be hard enough to keep him on the island even without all these other things. We'll do our best, Tsunade-sama, Guy promised with feeling. I need to see him before we leave. I'd like to take a blood sample back for comparison. Aoba followed after Tsunade with a lamp, and they descended into the dark interior of the boat. Naruto's door creaked slightly as they opened it, and Aoba held up the lamp to let light in the room. He was there snoring peacefully, back turned toward the door. Tsunade walked up to him quietly with a fond smile. Even while fast asleep, he suddenly seemed much bigger and grown up than Tsunade was used to. He had kicked off most of the covers and his mouth was open, giving him a dopey look that was very endearing in the eyes of an adoptive grandmother. I really hope this doesn't end badly, for either of you. Tsunade lay her hand on his head as if to ruffle his hair, but she was actually monitoring the flow of chakra in his brain so he wouldn't wake up. With a mental apology, she filled a capsule with blood from his arm and left the room undetected. Toby materialized in a dark, damp underground cavern. After spending so much time around Kabuto, he started to chafe his hideout's resemblance to the gloomy spaces Orochimaru always loved. At least he didn't have snakes built into every pillar and torch here. Speaking of, Toby sat down in a stone chair with an air of weary irritation. The space in front of him swirled, and Kabuto came into view, hunched within his hood. Zetsu's face appeared through one of the walls, molding and shifting until it became recognizable. All right. What is this new arrangement you were talking about earlier? Toby asked, half regretting the question already. Kabuto gave a laugh that started low, but became long and unsettling. As he did, his voice changed. It shifted from something high-pitched and slightly hysterical into a deep, raspy chuckle that was immediately recognizable when it settled. What I mean is there has been a change, he said, except he wasn't speaking with Kabuto's voice anymore. There was a pause. Toby straightened up in his chair. You are Orochimaru. Very good. Orochimaru looked up. He was no longer wearing Kabuto's face. He took off Kabuto's glasses and slipped them into his pocket. Toby closed his fists. Explain. How are you still alive? It's really very simple. I finally succeeded in taking over, just as Kabuto feared I would. Of course, I'm not quite at full power yet. There's something else I need before I can be fully revived. If you plan on getting in my way, no? We can still work together, if you want to. You can have Edo Tensei soldiers for your war. Orochimaru lifted his palms in a shrug, the ever-present smirk plastered on his face. To be honest, I'm just tired of Kabuto's shameless imitation of me. It's no fun watching from the sidelines when what's in front of me is boring. If that's how it's going to be, I might as well act in the world myself. That's why I took measures to influence him in certain ways. You mean all this with the Kyuubi? Toby demanded. You can't expect me to ignore that. And if you really want to help, why did you revive former Akatsuki members to steal it? Oh, that wasn't me. Orochimaru hissed slightly on the last syllable. Up until now, I didn't have full control. It was necessary to revive Nagato in order to perform the technique, but Kabuto was more concerned with breaking away from you. When your associate, Orochimaru nodded at Zetsu, tried to interrupt the time-spanning incarnation, of course Kabuto used your revived Akatsuki to fight back. If you all had worked together from the start, we wouldn't have lost track of Naruto-kun. Then where are they now? Nagato and Itachi? I do not know. Unfortunately, I have no control over them. I can't undo their reincarnation either. Only the one who summoned them can do that, and I have no intention of giving this body back for such a pointless reason. Zetsu, go back to Orochimaru's hideout. See if they are there. Toby said. That sounds like a convenient excuse. He's probably lying. Black Zetsu warned. Just go. Zetsu sunk into the wall. Toby glanced back at Orochimaru. Edo Tensei aside, what do you want with the Kyuubi? Do you plan on keeping him away from us too? Yes. I hope that doesn't prevent us from working together. Stop messing around. Toby stood from his chair, immediately furious. If this replica really has the Kyuubi, why would I ignore that, when taking it would make my goal that much easier to accomplish? You can chase after the Kyuubi all you want, I don't care what you do with the one from this time. But I'm afraid I can't let you interrupt my project. There are some aspects of it I want to refine, but what really interests me is the unrealized potential of what I brought here. Not just the potential he already had, but the malleability of the form I made to contain him. I don't care about your stupid experiments. You cannot extract his bijou, not even with the ghetto statue. Orochimaru raised a hand and pointed at Tobi ominously. We have made sure of that. I doubt even the real Uchiha Madara could reach the bijou's chakra inside him, because Senju Hashirama's power is holding it back. He will be able to draw on that power himself, with some effort. But if an external force attempts to extract it against his will, the Kyuubi's chakra will immediately be absorbed by Hashirama's cells, and poor Naruto-kun will probably turn into a very large tree. What have you done? Tobi seethed. That is why you stole one of the Zetsu, isn't it? You altered it, and used it as a vessel for the summoning. You specifically set everything up to get in my way, yet you say you're on my side? Why don't I just kill you now, so you don't have the chance to get in my way again? Now, no need for all that. Orochimaru chuckled. Killing me won't change the facts. I haven't done anything to you, Tobi-san. You're back where you were all along. Is that so bad? If you don't intend to use the Kyuubi, then what's the point? I'm interested to see where his path goes. Orochimaru said lightly. I have been developing this jutsu for a long time, but I've never tested it. There's no doubt it needs refining. I also wonder, how does it compare to the Edo Tensei, or other mind-body transfer techniques? Unlike the dead, a living soul has the capacity to grow and change. And yet, by controlling the circumstances, you can essentially make it into a new existence. What are the capacities of this new existence? That is what interests me. Really? Tobi said dryly. And where does helping me come into it? A deal is a deal. Kabuto agreed to help you, so I will too. I can't do much with my own project until I get my full power back. In the meantime, you will not be able to reach him easily, and you can't send him back even if you wanted, so you have no reason to concern yourself with him. And how would you do that? Send him back. Orochimaru considered that question for a while. Like the Edo Tensei, you can have the original summoner reverse it. Unlike Edo Tensei, killing them would also work. But as I've said, it wasn't me. Tobi stared at Orochimaru for a long time, trying to gauge his truthfulness. Looking at the snake's smile, it was next to impossible. As a sign of goodwill, Orochimaru continued, I will help you when the war begins, and even help you get the Kyuubi and Hachibi. Until then, I must focus on regaining my power. After their discussion, Orochimaru left. Tobi let him go, despite his frustration. Did you find anything? He asked when half of Zetsu finally reappeared. Nothing, Black Zetsu said. No sign of Nagato or Itachi. My other half is still trying to trace them, but they've either run off or gotten called back to the afterlife. No. They're still around. Even if Orochimaru is lying about losing control over the Edo Tensei, I believe he wasn't the one who did the actual summoning. But he said we won't be able to reach the Kyuubi regardless. How arrogant, Black Zetsu said. If he's really so weak now, we have no reason to listen to what he says. Tobi shook his head. Weak or not, he set the plot up indirectly, making it almost impossible to unravel by force. True or not, we can attempt the extraction anyway. It's no loss to us if it doesn't work. Yes. We may be able to find a use for the younger one, anyway. He could be a weak point against the allied shinobi force. He makes them vulnerable, and they probably realize that by now. They're probably handling him like he's made of glass. So then? Tobi smiled behind his mask and walked out of the room, Zetsu following behind. He walked down a dark flight of stairs. He opened a wooden door that creaked softly. This room was only a little brighter than the stairwell, unlit save for the glowing green light that came from dozens of tanks lining the walls. Each tank contained a floating, disembodied eye. A boy sat on a raised platform, not facing them, not looking at anything. He couldn't see. How much longer do I have to stay like this? Sasuke said. A while yet. How are you feeling today? I'm fine. I'll be even better once I can leave here. A smile almost as unsettling as Orochimaru's spread below the bandages covering half his face. I have a promise to keep, after all. Tsunade returned from the 5 Kage meeting the next morning. She gave Sai a checkup and said he would be ready to leave the hospital very soon. Okay then, Naruto said, so impatient he was practically bouncing. So what about me? I get to leave soon too, right? What did you guys decide at the meeting? I want to know too, Tsunade-sama. Sai added cheerfully, and Sakura nodded. Right, Swad said, handing Sai's chart to a nurse, who excused herself with it. After the meeting of the 5 Kage, it has been decided that you will be placed under the direct protection of the Kazekage. The Kazekage? Naruto said nervously. He crossed his arms and tried hard to remember what he knew about the man. You will be perfectly safe with him, Tsunade said with a smile. The Kazekage is a bit of a mother hen when it comes to you, Naruto. Naruto imagined a faceless person in a Kazekage hat sitting on him, before he realized that he did know the foreign Kage, sort of. Wait, he said slowly. Isn't he Gaara's father? You know, the one that tried to have his son assassinated multiple times? No, that one died just before the Chunin exams, when Orochimaru stole his identity to manipulate Suna. It's someone else now. Don't worry, you'll like him, Sakura said brightly. Your team will set out as soon as Sai has recovered enough, Tsunade said. A small group is faster and less noticeable. I need Kakashi to stay here, so I will be sending another Jounin in his place, Hyuga Niji. What? He's a Jounin? He didn't tell me that. Naruto broke in. Tsunade didn't humor this outburst. I'm sending him because aside from Kakashi, he's the Jounin you know the best in Konoha, and that you'll be the most comfortable working with. His Byakugan should also be helpful for making sure you aren't being followed. I'm trying to keep you with people you're familiar with in your time. Except for Sai. No, it's cool. Naruto interrupted again. Me and Sai are friends now. Well, he says he doesn't know, but he's willing to go along with what I say, and I say we're friends. That was faster than last time. Tsunade raised a brow at Sai and Sakura. Meh. Sakura waved a hand. That's just because we had to break Sai in before he was nice to be around. Sure, Sakura-chan, Naruto said. From what I heard about how you acted back then, break would be the right word. Hey, Sakura said, reddening slightly. You were incredibly rude too. All of us were. Not Yamato Taishu, Sai offered. He treated us to a stay at the onsen, and even saved Naruto from your violence. How so? Sakura asked suspiciously. I declined to answer that on the grounds it might spur you to violence against the Naruto with us. Wait, what? Naruto gulped. Ahem. Tsunade coughed. As I was saying, your team will meet the delegation from Suna at the border between the Land of Wind and the Land of Rivers. From that point on, the Kazekage will be your guard at all times when you're not in Sunagekure. When and where you go will mostly be up to him. Cheer up, though. You should feel honored. Usually you'd have to have the status of a daimyo to have the privilege of a Kage as your personal guard. She sounded amused. But then, why can't you just be my guard? Naruto wrinkled his nose. I told you. You need a place that's actually defensible. Suna is heavily fortified and difficult to approach without being seen. They have taken great lengths to improve their own security lately. Besides, the Kazekage is better than I am at fighting while protecting others at the same time. If you say so, Naruto muttered. Man, this sucks. Be ready to leave as soon as Sai recovers his strength, Tsunade ordered. I think I will be ready to travel by tomorrow, Sai said. I could fight by the day after. Tsunade nodded. Normally I would advise against pushing yourself, but it's best if we get this done soon as possible. Sakura will be with you too. You should be back up to speed by the time you cross the border of the Fire Country. Any objections? No, ma'am, Sai and Sakura said, but Naruto just muttered into the hand he was resting his chin on. 2 more little things, Naruto, Tsunade added in a tone that was suddenly much more gentle. He straightened up in surprise. Tomorrow we are holding a memorial service for those who died in the attack on the other village. You can go to it if you want to. Oh, he said, feeling cold suddenly. Second, I wanted to let you know that I was able to check in with Guy's group. She continued. They didn't know anything was going on. It seems your older self is still with them, alive and well. Most citizens of that ill-fated farming community had left to aid Konoha with the reconstruction, leaving only a handful to tend to crops. Because of that, the memorial for the 20 civilians killed was held in Konoha, so that their friends and family could attend. The only people who were left to mourn were in Konoha. Very few shinobi or citizens of the Hidden Leaf itself attended, but among the ones who did were Naruto, Sakura, Sai, and Kakashi, as well as the ANBU agents Bor, Raven, and Tiger, who went as guards. The bodies were not to be interred at Konoha. By consensus of the remaining villagers, they would be taken back and privately buried in the local graveyard. They had every intention of returning to their homes and crops, even after what had happened, and they wanted their friends and neighbors to return home as well. Naruto put Shinji's shoes in front of his photograph on the long table full of photographs, a lineup of people that had once called him a hero. He wondered if other villagers were watching him. He wondered if they knew. The guilt was like a cold, hard stone in his chest. The allied shinobi force had decreed he would be sent to the land of wind and left under the protection of the Kazekage for an undetermined amount of time. There he would be hidden, there he would be safe. That's what they said, but that wasn't exactly the kind of assurance he cared about. That wasn't what he wanted at all. "I'll fix it, I promise," he vowed as he stood in front of the photographs. "I'll make sure you never have to die because of me." There were only two things he wanted. First, he wanted everyone to stop hiding things from him. The only way he was going to be able to redo anything the right way was to know the truth. Second, he wanted to find Yakushi Kabuto and make him send him back to his own time. At the moment, though, he only had a few vague plans. Older Naruto was the first mystery he wanted to figure out. If his older self was still around, what did that mean? And why was he still taking it easy on a nice cruise when Akatsuki was after both of them? With any luck, the Kazekage would be less tight-lipped and he'd be able to put together a few more clues while staying with them. Naruto moved on, returning to his friends, who watched him with a pitying expression that he really didn't like. "Are you alright?" Sakura asked softly. "It doesn't matter compared to how they're doing, does it?" Naruto said, indicating the villagers. They stood together in black-clad clusters, drifting, stopping in front of photographs, leaning on one another. The shinobi were a little bit apart from them and definitely stuck out, even while wearing black like everyone else, but no one asked why they were there. "I guess you're right," Sakura said with a small, sad smile. "What are you three leaving?" Kakashi said. "I'd like to go too, but they went and gave me an important position in the alliance for some reason. Early tomorrow morning, if I start resting in bed again as soon as this is over," Sai said. "We're stuck at the hospital again tonight," Naruto grumbled. "Boring. We can play cards some more if you like," Sai offered. "No way. I keep losing to you." Sakura laughed. "Your poker face is no match for his, Naruto." "I bet not," Kakashi said. "I'm sure we can get some people to come by and keep you from getting bored, especially since you're leaving tomorrow. Since you can't go out, it would be the next best thing." "I would like that too," Sai said. Naruto looked at Kakashi thoughtfully. He had mostly overlooked it in the surprise at how well people in general seemed to like him these days, but there was something subtly different about his sensei from what he remembered. Kakashi had looked out for his team from the very beginning, but he seemed warmer somehow. It was barely noticeable because he was still late all the time, didn't always check in with them, and had no problem dumping his students at the hospital for a few days with little contact, but his concern leaked through more frequently than it did in the past. Or maybe he just acted that way more often with him. It was hard to put into words, but there had been some kind of change in Kakashi, just like everyone else. "Are you ready to go back?" Kakashi asked, catching his look. "Or do you need more time?" His tone was genuine, not wry. "I'm ready, I guess," Naruto said. Sakura linked arms with him. "Hey, I'll play cards with you guys too. And we should get a ramen delivery to the room tonight as a treat." She put her other arm through Sai's and dragged them both along. "Hey! I'm not gonna run away, so you don't have to pull me, Sakura-chan." The future had its good points too. Naruto wished he could separate all the good things and the bad things, to keep just the parts he wanted in the future. He'd been alone for so long. Now these people made up a circle of friends bigger than he ever imagined having. It was like reaping the benefit of someone else's work, intruding in on something that didn't belong to him, at least not yet. It was strange, how terrible and wonderful the future turned out to be. "Oh, I get it," Sai said from Sakura's other side. "Physical contact is often used to show support and provide comfort in stressful times. We can reinforce and display our camaraderie at the same time by walking arm in arm. It's good to have you back, Sai," Sakura said. "Your formation is a little lopsided with the short one in there, though," Kakashi said, strolling behind them lazily. "I take back everything I thought about you being sort of nice." Naruto growled under his breath. As Naruto feared, that last day stuck in the hospital was agonizingly boring. Sai slept during much of it, and Kakashi had vanished, probably being smart enough not to subject himself to sticking around for the boring card games and Naruto's complaints. But near evening, he had a visitor. Naruto looked up when someone knocked, then opened the door. "Iruka-sensei!" Naruto cried, jumping up from his chair. He hesitated for a second, then ran to hug him. "Look at you! I really can't believe it!" Iruka rested his hand on Naruto's head, which didn't aggravate like when anyone else did that. "I'm sorry I haven't been able to come see you before now. I've been mostly stuck down in the evacuation tunnels where most of the children are, and I didn't hear about you until recently." "What? No one told you?" Naruto said indignantly. "The powers that be have their hands a bit full right now, I think." The news spread pretty quickly once the general population was in on it. Iruka smiled, but it didn't quite touch the worry in his eyes. "I heard about the 5 Kage meeting. Have you got supplies for tomorrow?" "I left everything in the past, so I'll have to get a whole new set of equipment before we leave," Naruto confessed. "I even left behind the Hittite you gave me. I'm sorry. I've taken it with me everywhere ever since I first got it. I don't feel right without it." He touched his forehead gloomily. Even before he finished speaking, Iruka was untying the Hittite from his head. "I doubt it will mean as much to you this time," he said, holding it out faceplate side up. "But consider it a good luck charm for your journey." Naruto took it, a slow grin forming on his face. "Thanks, Iruka-sensei." He looked at the Konoha symbol stamped into the headband for a moment, and was struck with sudden inspiration. It was possible he'd get the same roundabout answers he got from everyone else, but it would be worth a try. Iruka was the only person he had met so far that didn't seem any different toward him at all. "How strong am I in this time, Iruka-sensei?" he asked, not looking up from the headband. "No one will tell me, so I'm afraid something happened to make me even weaker than I am now, or something." He surprised himself by admitting the silly fear out loud. Iruka put his hands on Naruto's shoulders and bent to speak directly to his face. "You are already one of the strongest shinobi I have ever seen. You have never stopped growing stronger, and I don't think you ever will. Then why? It's going to take a lot of hard work to get to where you are now, but I know you're up to the task," Iruka said firmly. "In some ways, it doesn't matter. You can't afford to get complacent. You just have to keep going forward and giving it all you can." "Am I stronger than Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto asked conspiratorially. "He said so himself." Iruka nodded. "He did?" Naruto said gleefully. "No way. Don't get complacent, I said." Iruka tapped the metal plate on the headband in Naruto's hand. "I can't even imagine the heights that you will reach someday. But as long as you aren't there yet, you still have a very long way to go. Measuring yourself against other people can be useful, but in the long run it's all about how much you can break your own limits." "All right." Naruto clenched the Hittite in his hand with a determined smirk. "Then from now on I'll surpass myself." Chapter 11, Departure. "Get out of bed, Naruto! Geez, I don't understand how you ever manage to be on time for missions." Naruto cracked his eyes open for the third time that morning as Sakura came around yet again to wake him up. This time, he pulled himself up from the warm embrace of sleep the best he could, sitting up slowly and blinking at his teammates, who were fully clothed and ready to go. He wasn't completely awake until he had showered and dressed and they were in Tsunade's temporary office hearing the mission briefing. Niji was already there, and Tsunade was drinking tea and reading papers. She looked up when they came in. "Took you all long enough. I have to hear a report on the reconstruction in half an hour, so let's get this over with." She held out a scroll and Niji stepped forward to take it. "The 4 of you are to rendezvous with the delegation from Suna on the border between the Land of Rivers and the Land of Wind in 2 days' time. The coordinates are in your scroll. From there, they will escort you across the desert into Suna. If for some reason you aren't able to reach the meeting place on time, have Sai send a message ahead with your ETA." "Will the Kazekage be there personally, Tsunade-sama?" Niji asked. "Maybe. That was his intention, but it depends on what comes up for him between now and then. Regardless, whoever they send will be more than qualified. Send word once you arrive in Suna, and wait there for further instructions. I may need everyone except Naruto to come back soon after, since our Chunin and Jounin can't be spared for long." "When do I get to come back?" Naruto asked despondently. "I don't know." Tsunade rested her elbows on the desk and linked her hands. She sighed. "It's time you're made aware of something. The true leader of Akatsuki, who calls himself Uchiha Madara, has declared all-out war on the allied shinobi force. That's the real reason we teamed up in the first place. We aren't sure how he intends to do it, but knowing how powerful he is, and given the recent evidence that they're using the Edo Tensei, all of us are preparing for war. Where you go will depend on the enemy's movements, and how safe Suna can remain. What, war? Naruto felt himself wake up very suddenly. How can one guy declare war on entire countries? And who the hell is Uchiha Madara? I thought all the Uchiha were, you know. I don't have time to go into the details right now, but your teammates will bring you up to speed about that on the way. Tsunade held up a hand when Sakura looked like she was about to protest. No. This much is necessary. Suna is in the midst of preparations just like everyone else, and keeping company with the Kazekage will make it impossible to hide the war any longer. Naruto, when you can come back depends entirely on the war. You might not be able to come back even if Suna becomes unsafe. As you've seen, we're hosting many small communities from around the Land of Fire. Our broken-down village is of the least strategic importance right now, and it can only stay that way if you are somewhere else. Naruto pressed his lips together tightly, fighting down the horror at what he was hearing. The storehouses stocked with supplies, the patrols, the cancellation of all regular missions, the alliance. It all made sense now. He thought it was a little unusual that regular missions had been stopped when the opposite had been the case after Orochimaru's attack in his time. Now he knew why. You are right, he said finally. It's probably better if I'm not here. But there has to be something that I can do to help. I can't just hide behind people forever and let them be in danger for me, whether it's Suna or Konoha, or anyone. Tsunade chuckled darkly. You don't have to tell me how you feel about it, Naruto. I know. You forget, I've been dealing with you for far longer than you have been dealing with me. But what do you want me to do? Even if the enemy hadn't specifically targeted you, do you think I'm going to send any 12-year-old genin out to war any sooner than absolutely necessary? Would you have me throw Konohamaru and all the others into it too? She looked at him over her clenched hands. Her eyes burned with a fierce fire, and Naruto remembered suddenly that her little brother had been killed in war, the same age as him. He swallowed. Well then, will you let the older me fight at least? He said falteringly. And let me find a way to get back to my own time. I'm sure he will end up in the battle sooner or later. Tsunade leaned back in her chair, relaxing. My money is on that as an eventual outcome. For what it's worth, that is what I wanted to begin with, but I was outvoted by the other Kage. Try not to get into that topic with the Kazekage. He was one of the ones most strongly against it. As for finding your way back, first we have to confirm who did it and how, and then work from there. I don't know how much you will able to do. Your time spent in the Land of Wind will be up to the Kazekage. Naruto sighed heavily. Hey, it might be fun, Tsunade said. I'm sure he'll put you to work if you want. Being the Kazekage's lackey could be good for you, since you'll be able to see how a Kage works. She grinned suddenly. Lackey? Are there any other pertinent questions about the mission? They all shook their heads. Sakura cast Naruto an amused look, and he couldn't help but feel like they were all in on some private joke. He scowled. Tsunade stood. All right then, you're dismissed. Get Naruto some equipment from the armory and set out within the hour. The armory didn't have much to offer, at least from Naruto's perspective. All they could get for him was standard gear and a typical Konoha uniform, minus the flak vest. He tried to negotiate for a bright orange backpack, but was voted down because they didn't have the time to find one. Instead, he got a boring gray pack, along with the tool pouches and supplies necessary for a 3-day journey. But at least he could wear Iruka's Hittite, and one of his older self shirts with the iconic crest on the front. They left as soon as possible, taking the route that started high up on the cliffs. Naruto turned back to give the village one last look. A lot's been rebuilt, just since I've been here, he said in awe. Yeah. Sakura gave a small smile. By the time we come back, it will be completely different again. Naruto didn't know when he would see this Konoha again, or if he ever would. It should be what he wanted, to go home. His true home. But it was a strange thought. Someone's running after us. Sai pointed. Where? It's Konohamaru. Niji gave a puzzled frown. Sure enough, moments later Konohamaru skidded to a stop several meters away from them, panting. Aha! Thought you could just sneak away, Kore? What are you doing, Konohamaru? Sakura said. Go back to the village. No! Konohamaru cried. As a ninja, no, as a man, there is something that I have to do first. He pointed at Naruto. Naruto Naiken! I challenge you right here and now. Huh? Naruto said. We're leaving on a mission right now, but we can compare our progress in perverted jutsu when I get back, okay? Not that. Konohamaru shook his head agitatedly. I mean, I want you to fight me. I don't think you're coming back. This could be my only chance. Only chance for what? Niji said. Spit it out. We're on a tight schedule here. I've always looked up to you, Naiken. Konohamaru said directly to Naruto, ignoring everyone else. But the way things are going, I feel like I'm gonna be behind you my entire life. Sometimes I wonder if I could really be your rival, with such a gap between us, but now I have the chance to fight against you when you were the same age as I am now. Don't you see? I can't let a chance like that go for anything. Ha! Naruto said, shedding his backpack and walking toward him, hands ready near the kunai strapped to his leg. Now that you mention it, you're right. Now what? Sakura looked at Niji. Should we stand back? Sai suggested. Niji sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Neither of them will listen if we say no. Hey! He called, and Naruto and Konohamaru looked at him. You have 10 minutes, then we're leaving. And try not to break anything, or Tsunade-sama will kill all of us. I can't believe we're already getting delayed and we haven't even started. Niji picked up Naruto's pack and dragged it to the tree-line. Sai sat down on a log and Sakura went up into a tree to watch. Naruto turned to Konohamaru, cracking his knuckles with a grin. Don't think I'll go easy on you. Ha! Pretty soon you'll be begging for me to go easy on you. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Konohamaru yelled, and 3 copies of himself appeared in formation around him, each wielding a kunai. Impressive, but you know all I have to do is cancel it out. Naruto raised his hands into his favorite seal. Kage. His eyes widened as the real Konohamaru body flickered out of sight at the same time the 3 clones ran at him. Naruto dived and rolled out of the way as a fistful of shuriken came from behind, whirling harmlessly through the space where he had been standing. Dang, he's really serious, Naruto thought, crouching near to the ground after his roll and watching warily. And he can already use the body flicker technique. That's really good. Konohamaru's 3 clones were still after him, giving him no more time to think. Naruto dispelled the first one that reached him with an uppercut, and he elbowed the second one in the face after it tackled him around the middle. He jumped back and drew a kunai, facing the last. Where did the real you go? He said, eyes roving all over the area. He spotted Sakura standing beside Sai and threw the kunai at her. What the hell, Naruto? Sakura screeched, barely managing to dodge. Now you're gonna have to deal with me. She started stalking toward him. Nice try, Naruto shouted. But Sakura-chan wasn't standing there a second ago. That's just a disguise to distract me from this. He whirled around and his fist met with a fully solid object, one that did not dispel. Konohamaru grunted and flew back a small distance, not expecting the hit, and landed hard on the ground. The fake Sakura poofed into non-existence and Konohamaru cursed, pushing himself up on his hands and knees. Done already? Naruto said. Far from it. Konohamaru growled. He jumped up and crossed his fingers, producing 2 more clones. Okay, if that's how you want to play it. Naruto imitated him. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Dozens upon dozens of Naruto clones appeared, fencing in Konohamaru, surrounding him and his clones on every side. The 3 Konohamarus quickly stood back to back with each other, facing the huge mob. The Naruto clones all grinned maliciously. Come and get me! Over here! Naruto was just about to ask him whether he wanted to surrender, when suddenly Konohamaru shouted, Scatter! And one of the clones peeled off from the group and came running directly at the real Naruto. The other clone darted in another direction, and Konohamaru himself ran in the direction opposite from his foe. Naruto drew another kunai and brought it up to defend himself with, until he noticed that the clone racing toward him had a paper bomb stuck to its chest. Naruto took in a sharp breath, flipped backward, and brought his arms up just as the paper bomb exploded. He squeezed his eyes shut at the bright flash of light and heard the pops of dispelling clones accompanying the explosion. It wasn't enough to dispel them all, though. Naruto wrenched open his eyes and saw his remaining clones already filling in the gaps. In the meantime, the real Konohamaru climbed, punched, and elbowed his way through a thin spot in the circle. Naruto saw him running up the trunk of a very tall tree. When he reached almost the very top, Konohamaru launched himself off of it, spinning around and forming hand signs. Katon Haizekishu! Konohamaru was poised exactly over the chaotic mob when he took a huge breath and spit out a rapidly spreading cloud of gray dust. Not knowing what the mysterious cloud could do, Naruto scrambled away from the edge of it. It wasn't a moment too soon. Konohamaru bit off the end of the cloud, flinting it with his teeth. The cloud of dust flashed red in an instant, and went off with more energy than a paper bomb, incinerating everything contained in it. All the clones clustered below went up in flame and died horrible burning deaths. There was a whoosh of flame and a chorus of popping sounds filled the air. Konohamaru dropped down into the thick smoke left over from the attack. "Whoa, that was awesome!" Naruto called to him, walking closer while watching the leftover smoke cloud carefully. "I'd bet you had to use up a lot of chakra to do that, though. And even if you get rid of all of them once, there's always more where that came from." Naruto froze in place when he saw a blue glow coming from inside the smoke. The harsh sound of rapidly swirling chakra met his ears. "What?" Naruto gasped, and Konohamaru burst out of the smoke with his remaining clone by his side, the both of them working together to hold a small Rasengan. Naruto barely had time to register its existence before it was slammed into his abdomen. Naruto flew back and rolled several times before stopping at the base of a tree. Konohamaru's clone dispelled and he wavered on his feet, before losing the fight against gravity and dropping to the ground. He was panting heavily, but grinning. "Dang, I never realized what that felt like," Naruto groaned, sitting up. Konohamaru's jaw fell open at his sudden movement. Naruto pulled back the hand that was covering his abdomen, revealing a hole in his shirt and an angry red, welted patch of skin underneath. "I'm really glad you didn't hit me with that full power, or it could have been really bad." "Oh." Konohamaru slapped himself in the forehead. "I thought I made it stronger than that." "You idiot! What were you thinking?" Sakura jumped out of her tree and stomped over to Konohamaru, pulling him up from the ground by his collar. "What would possess you to use a move like that in a fight against your fellow genin?" "Oh." Konohamaru hung his head. "I guess I got carried away, I'm sorry." "No, it's great." Naruto stood slowly, grinning and propping himself on Sai's offered arm. "When did you learn how to do that, Konohamaru?" "Hey, a little while ago." Konohamaru smiled bashfully and rubbed his head. "You taught it to me." Sakura let him down with a snort and gave him a cursory look over. "You're not suffering from chakra exhaustion. I guess since you didn't really want to hurt Naruto, your body did not push past its own limits and produce a powerful attack. Which is a good thing, by the way, or we'd be even more delayed, and Tsunade-sama really would kill us." She turned and walked over to examine Naruto. "I'm fine." "Well, my shirt isn't." Naruto looked down at the large hole in it and gasped. "Aw, man! I hope the older me doesn't get mad. I took all the ones from his room. It is strange, though. It really does seem like that should have done more damage." Sakura mused, inspecting the injury. "It didn't even draw any blood, though it's pretty swollen." "Well, it definitely hurts like I got kicked by a horse, or one of Bachan's high heels." He grimaced. "Time's up. Are you ready to go?" Niji said. "Yeah, I guess." Naruto walked over to where Konohamaru was standing. "You were really awesome, Konohamaru. You already have a bunch of really neat jutsu. I'm kind of jealous. You know at least one I don't." Konohamaru sighed. "Your amount of energy is just too crazy, Niken. How am I ever supposed to beat you if I run out of power before you do?" "You're pretty good at strategizing already," Sai said. "Sheer power isn't everything. Besides, you are really powerful, too. Many genin cannot use elemental ninjutsu, not to mention the Rasengan. Go for more spin next time," Naruto advised. "Not on me, cause I don't want a hole put through me, but you know what I mean." "Thanks, guys. Good luck on your mission." Konohamaru held out his hand to Naruto and looked stubbornly down at the ground. Naruto shook his hand. "I wish I could stay and hang out with you more. It'll be fun when I go home, cause I'll be the only one who knows what you can really do. You'll definitely make it back." Konohamaru sniffled. He scrubbed at his eyes with his arm and whirled around. "Bye, everyone!" He gave a quick wave to the group and turned to jog back to the village. Sakura smiled and put a hand on her hip. "Well, if we're all ready, let's go." "Yes." Niji said. He tossed Naruto's backpack to him and led the way. The plan was to reach the land of River's border and stop for the night, making the first leg of the trip the longest. Once they hit foreign territory, allied or not, they would have to move with more caution. They were to meet the group from Suna before sunset the next day, make camp early, and set out across the desert in the wee hours of the morning to miss the worst of the beating sun. They were focused on covering as much ground as possible, so no one talked much aside from Niji's periodic reports on their surroundings, and Sai's consultations of the map. They kept going for a while past nightfall to reach the edge of the fire country before making camp. When they finally reached the border, one of the many rivers that gave the land of rivers its name, everyone was strained and more than ready for a rest. "How are you feeling?" Sakura asked Sai, handing him a cup of tea. He had settled down on his bedroll almost immediately after they set up camp. "I'm a little sore, but otherwise fine." He accepted the tea with a smile. "How is your battle wound, Naruto?" Sakura turned to him. "Let me see." Naruto pulled up the holeless shirt he'd changed into. "Oh. Yep. Completely gone." Sakura gave him a strange look and shook her head. "If it was anyone but you, I'd be freaked out." Niji was sitting cross-legged in front of the fire, sipping his own cup of tea and looking over their map. Naruto walked over and plopped down next to him. "How's our progress, Niji Taishu?" he asked cheekily. Niji gave an amused huff. Sakura came over to look at the map with them. "We can go at a slightly easier pace tomorrow," Niji said. "But we'll have to be especially alert. In the current climate, we are required to report any of our own major military movements through an allied country. Normally, that would only apply to groups larger than a squad, but both Kage and Jinchuriki fall into that category as well. We had no choice but to inform the local daimyo about our passage through. They weren't told our route or the coordinates of the rendezvous, but it is still more likely that, if anywhere, this is where we'll meet an ambush or enemy pursuit. We cannot be certain there will be no leaks." Niji looked up at Sai. "If anything happens, we are close enough to request backup from the Kazekage or his representative, since they will already be heading in our direction by tomorrow. Send them an SOS immediately, without waiting to find out the enemy's intentions. Hopefully, there will be enough warning for you to send a message before we make contact, but even if we are taken by surprise, make that your first priority. I will write it now, so all I have to do is add the coordinates," Sai said, reaching out to pull his bag toward him. "Good idea," Niji agreed. "Unfortunately, we know Madara has the ability to appear with no warning at all, using some type of teleportation jutsu. But we think he has to know where he's going. Whether he can teleport or not, he still has to find our location first." "Right, so," Naruto said suddenly. "He's the leader of Akatsuki, and now I know he can teleport. Bachan said you're supposed to tell me more about this guy, right?" Niji crossed his arms. "Yes. I agree it's for the best. Maybe things would be different if we knew how to send you back right now. But as long as you are staying here, I think you need to know the situation. I still don't understand how we could be going to war against a single guy." Naruto glanced at Sakura and Sai. They were looking at him, but they didn't seem upset. Instead, they looked like they were watching his reaction. "Madara is the leader of Akatsuki," Niji said. "One member of Akatsuki, Pain, was able to destroy Konoha all by himself. The rest of them managed to capture nearly all the world's Jinchuriki, despite the Biju's power. Just knowing he's the commander of a group like that demands we take him seriously." When this started, the 5 Kage met to discuss the Jinchuriki abductions, but then Madara and some of his associates invaded that meeting. His actions show how confident he is. He told the 5 Kage what his plan was, and declared war when they did not agree to cooperate. "And what is his plan?" There was silence for a moment when no one answered, and they all just stared into the campfire. Everyone looked lost in their own thoughts. "Come on," Naruto said. "You can't go so far and leave that part out. Madara is an Uchiha," Sakura said softly, watching the fire with her arms curled around her legs. "And he possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan, like Itachi. He claims he can use the power of the Biju to amplify his dojutsu enough to cast it on the moon, causing it to reflect back down on the world, trapping everyone in the world in an infinite tsukimi. He calls it the Moon's Eye Plan, Tsuki no Mi." Naruto stared at her with his mouth agape while what she said slowly sunk in. Niji nodded. Capturing all the Jinchuriki and extracting their Biju was the first step. He appealed to the Kage to give up the last of them and moved into open hostility when they refused. It's clear he's gotten impatient. Okay, Naruto said slowly, struggling to process all this new information. I think I get what you're saying about his plan and the war and all. But what the hell does all that have to do with Kabuto and bringing me to the future? And he rubbed his hands through his hair in frustration. I thought all the Uchiha were gone. Where did this guy come from? Kabuto and Madara have joined forces, Sai said. I was on the team watching Kabuto's movements initially, but we were swapped out for another group better specialized for tracking. They observed Kabuto and Madara making an agreement with one another. Kakashi-sensei said Kabuto gave them the slip the same day I came here, Naruto said quickly. Plus, Orochimaru was the only one who knew how to use the dead people move. An ineloquent way of putting it, but yes, Neji said. Whether it was Kabuto or Madara, it amounts to the same thing. One of them did it, and they are actively trying to capture you. We can't let that happen. Naruto curled his hands into fists. For the first time, the vague concept of Akatsuki chasing after him coalesced into a sharp, fine end point. They would take away the power inside of him and use it to end the world. And that's when he started to feel afraid, not the fear of being captured or hurt, or even killed, but the fear that something dark and ominous was going to swallow the world, and his lack of strength would cause it to happen. Naruto drew up his knees and rested his forehead on them, trying to force the fear down. He didn't have the strength to go against these monsters, and he didn't have the time to get strong enough, not unless he could escape back in time. I have to get out of here, he said through gritted teeth. The only way I can help is by going home. I can't take just sitting around, and if I can't fight, I'm not doing any good by being here. Easier said than done, isn't it? Sai said in his calm, even way. We'll have to stop the Jutsu caster, or get him to reverse it. Naruto looked up. If we could find out who did it and how, that would be something, right? If we run into one of them, we should try to get some information out of them. I'd rather not run into them, Neji pointed out. I'm just saying. Sakura put a hand on his shoulder. We'll get you back where you belong. I don't know how long it will take, but we aren't going to let them win. They'll send you back the easy way or the hard way. Naruto gave a small grunt of acknowledgement and picked up a small twig from the ground. He absently broke it into smaller pieces. If it was just Kabuto one-on-one, he could probably hold the medic off, maybe even for long enough to ask some questions. He'd already fought Kabuto before, after all. Naruto threw the twig pieces into the fire and brushed off his hands. As long as he was here, he would fight. It didn't really matter how hopeless it seemed. There was nothing else to be done. Backing down was not something that he was fond of doing. Neji stood. Everyone should turn in. We'll still be leaving early in the morning. Sakura stood as well. Shouldn't we take the guard in turns so you don't have to overuse your eyes? He agreed, rolling up the map. I'll take first watch. If anyone notices anything suspicious, wake Sai first, so he can send the message. But wait, I had more questions about Madara. Naruto craned his head to watch them walk back and forth, putting away scrolls and unrolling bedrolls. Get some sleep for now, Neji said. We'll have plenty of time for that after we reach Suna. Naruto shrugged and stood up, dusting off his pants. He settled down at a comfortable distance from the fire and lay with his arms crossed under his head, looking up at the sky. The clearing they were in was very small, a little hollow barely safe to light a fire in, but above was a jagged hole in the canopy of trees where the stars peeked through. Several yards away, the river gurgled quietly. Naruto closed his eyes and basked in the nostalgic camp feeling. Though they hadn't yet left the fire country, and he was among friends, he still felt a bit homesick. Whatever the Land of Wind had in store for him, it would be another piece to the puzzle that, if they could just see how it fit together, could be the key to undoing this bizarre situation. Naruto opened his eyes and raised his hand slowly, curling it around the moon like it was a jewel he could pluck out of the sky. It was a waning moon, a sleepy eye on the verge of closing. Who knew such a peaceful thing could be dangerous? Was this the same moon that hung in his own sky? Was this even the same reality? If not, what was it? Trying to work that one out made his brain feel like someone was wringing it out, so Naruto lowered his hand and closed his eyes again. Real or not, he thought, I have to try. I can't stop or look back in doubt. That's good enough for me. Chapter 12 Kazekage. There it is, Neji said. He held up a hand. The team stopped behind him, landing lightly on tree branches. Beyond the edge of the trees was a long stretch of sandy grass that gradually shifted into pure sand, a gradient from vegetation to never-ending desert. "We should be close to the rendezvous point," Sai said. Niji activated his Byakugan and looked down the tree line to the west. "Do you see them?" Naruto shifted impatiently on his tree branch. Niji smiled. "Eh. And I think they see us too." "Huh!" Niji pointed down. A small, strange floating orb circled in the air below them. He jumped down from his tree, and they all followed. The floating orb whizzed around each of them in turn, and Naruto noticed when it paused near him that it was actually a floating eyeball. "Hey!" he said in surprise. "That's—" They appeared in a sudden whirl of sand. On the left, Kankuro stood with one hand on his hip and a cocky smile. On the right, Temari leaned against her fan. She looked relaxed, but was still cautious enough to have her weapon out. And in the middle, Gaara stood straight-backed with his arms folded, looking no more or less excited than usual. The two older siblings were dressed in dark blue and black tones, with light-colored neck wraps that draped down their front. Gaara was in red. Anyone who didn't know him would have seen his indifferent posture and expression and get the impression of a bland, standoffish person. But to those who knew better, he was practically beaming with joy. Naruto wouldn't have needed Sakura's assurances to tell right away that Gaara's life had changed dramatically for the better. "Gaara!" he called happily, starting forward. "Hold on." Niji stuck his hand out to stop Naruto. He took out the mission scroll Tsunade gave them and tossed it onto the ground. It rolled open, revealing the text written on it. Gaara also took out a scroll and tossed it down. Gaara's scroll rolled open over theirs. There was a pop and a puff of smoke, and a pigeon came out of the cross seals and darted into the sky as if startled. Niji visibly relaxed and Temari snapped her fan into place on her back. "I didn't know you guys were going to meet us here." Naruto trotted up to Gaara and gave the three siblings with a wide smile. He had to fight down the urge to hug his long-lost friend, since he wasn't sure whether Gaara had changed quite enough to be okay with random hugs. "I thought it was going to be a group of stiff, diplomatic types. Bachan said the Kazekage was supposed to meet us here." "Huh?" Temari put a hand on her hip. "Yeah. Gaara is the Kazekage." Naruto's grin faded and he stared at her. He whirled around to look at his team quizzically. "It's true," Sakura said. "Told you you'd like the Kazekage." She winked. Naruto whirled back to Gaara for confirmation. "I don't have the hat with me, if that's what you're looking for," Gaara said, quietly amused. "But it's true. Nobody mentioned it to you?" "No," Naruto said loudly. "How did? I don't. This is awesome." Gaara smiled. "I can tell you about it later. First, I have some news. There's been a slight change of plans." Gaara bent to pick the scrolls up from the ground. He straightened and rolled them up neatly. "What?" Sakura glanced aside at the others. "I know we planned to camp here and leave early in the morning." Gaara handed their scroll to Niji. "But something has come up, and we need to return sooner. We have to leave right away and travel through the night." The happy reunion atmosphere changed. Gaara's quiet voice hadn't changed much, but he suddenly seemed more serious. "What happened?" Niji asked. Kankuro cleared his throat. "After we left, we got a messenger hawk from the village council, saying that the wind daimyo had dropped by unexpectedly. He expected us to be there, even though he didn't warn us he was going to visit. Like there's nothing else we could be doing. He wants to meet with Gaara right away. We have little choice but to change plans and return to the village soon. It'll be faster if we fly on my sand," Gaara said. "It might be a little crowded, but I want to make the platform small as possible. I can carry someone with my Chujigiga if you like. I can make a bird large enough to hold 2 or 3 people." Sai offered. Gaara nodded. "Good. We'll rest here a few minutes and start out soon." Everyone put down their packs and weapons and sat in a loose circle on the grass. A few brought out energy bars or canteens. "I don't get it." Naruto scooted closer to Gaara while sitting cross-legged. "It's his fault for showing up when you're gone, so why should you have to change your plans? Why does he even want to see you?" "They didn't say," Gaara said. "Ha!" Temari snorted. "The only thing any of the daimyo care about is what's going to happen to them in the war. Sometimes I think the Wind Daimyo believes our allegiance is supposed to be to him above everything, like in the old days. Never mind Suna or the people of the Wind Country." Niji gave a humorless smile. The Fire Daimyo wanted members from all the noble clans of Konoha to supplement his personal guard during the war. I happened to be there when he mentioned it, so he made sure to add that a branch house member like me wouldn't be needed. As if I was jumping at the chance, anyway. Tsunade-sama had to turn his request down, of course. It's ridiculous to think we would try to fight a war without some of our finest shinobi. He also has a knack for interrupting when she's in a meeting, which doesn't help. Sakura rolled her eyes. If only it was just a matter of Wind Daimyo Yamaguchi being self-absorbed. Gaara said, looking meditative, sitting on the ground with his legs and arms folded. But he likes to reaffirm his power so Suna can't forget it. The war is, if anything, making that trait in him stronger. Why? Naruto asked, when it was clear nobody else was particularly surprised about this. What's the point? Out of the 5 great shinobi countries, Wind has the shakiest relations between its hidden village and the daimyo. Temari explained. The previous daimyo mistrusted Suna to the point where he encouraged Wind's citizens to patronize other hidden villages, Konoha especially. That's why it was so easy for Orochimaru to bait our father into backing his invasion of Konoha. Thanks to the previous rampages of Shikaku, our old daimyo was also prejudiced against the Jinchuriki. Needless to say, Gaara was not able to become Kazekage until after the daimyo was succeeded by his nephew, who rules now. The current daimyo thinks his uncle's policy of antagonizing his own hidden village was a recipe for our country falling to outsiders. Gaara said. He still wants constant deference from Suna. He just doesn't believe we should be gotten rid of. And he is generally more tolerant to Jinchuriki than his predecessors. Yeah, or he hides it better, Kankuro said darkly. Temari shook her head. Naruto frowned. Is me coming to Suna gonna cause a problem? He likes the idea of Konoha being indebted to us, so he won't change his mind and make a fuss now. Besides, though we prefer if he goes along with it, his dissent would not be enough to overturn the decision of the allied shinobi force. Gaara stood up. Is it time to go? Sakura asked. Yes, if everyone's ready. And so, after the 2 short rests, they set out across the desert. Niji, Naruto, and Temari rode on a chunk of sand with Gaara, and Sakura and Kankuro rode with Sai on the back of his beast imitation. They rode without saying much for a while. They were flying very fast, and the wind whipping through their ears made it difficult to talk. The sun was setting in their faces, so Naruto sat on the edge of the platform of sand with his back turned to it. Its rays were warm on his back, and a deep purple was creeping into the horizon opposite it. The scenery was beautiful for a while, but hours of looking at the same sand dunes eventually became mind-numbing. Now that he knew Gaara was the Kazekage, Naruto wanted to ask why Gaara didn't want his older self to fight in the war. But the wind was too loud, and Naruto didn't want to mess with Gaara's concentration. So he filed that question away in his mind for later instead. Maybe the answer would help him figure something out. They were all trained to handle the delirium of sleeplessness and non-stop travel, but everyone was relieved when the entrance to Suna finally came into view. Naruto raised his head from a slight doze and twisted around to look at the great terracing walls when they started slowing down. I think we can walk the rest of the way. We're practically there. It'll wake us all up, Temari said in a tone that invited no argument. Gaara smiled faintly. He was the only one who didn't look tired at all, but he spread out his hands and lowered them all to the ground. Sai landed behind them and his Choji Giga disintegrated into ink. It did feel good to stretch and get some blood flowing into their cold and stiff muscles. The sun had not yet risen and the night was chilly, especially while flying through it faster than most shinobi could run. Naruto had to keep stifling his yawns. He walked in the middle of the group and everyone stood head and shoulders taller than him, even Gaara, who used to be just as short as he was. Naruto sleepily watched the swaying of the gourd on Gaara's back as he walked directly behind him. Gaara was already taking his role as a bodyguard very seriously. Naruto didn't think the sand drifting outside the perimeter of their little circle was a natural desert phenomenon. They passed through a thin, ominously dark gap in the outer walls. Undoubtedly there were guards posted here, but Naruto could not see them. They didn't see anyone at all, in fact, until they reached the other side and were officially in Sunagakure. A few older men dressed in Suna's standard long tunics and scarves were waiting at the entranceway. Gaara-sama, welcome back. Report, Gaara said. Their group didn't stop walking. Instead, the men walked alongside them. Yamaguchi-sama requested you meet with him when he wakes up. According to his attendants, he usually rises around 9, so it will be several hours yet. He said on no account should he be disturbed from his sleep. Seriously? Kankuro muttered. Do you know what he wants to speak about? Gaara asked. No, sir. He said he would only talk about it to you directly. Fine. We need to get everyone settled in anyway. Please send for me when the Wind Daimyo wakes up. Sir? Naruto watched Gaara interact with the important-looking Suna officials with a mixture of pride and awe. It was strange and even disorienting to see the deference they gave him, but it was a good kind of strange. The last time they'd seen each other, Gaara felt nothing but a mutual hate toward his fellow sand villagers, and even his own siblings were afraid of him. Naruto wanted to say something to him. Something about how happy he was things turned out so well, how he knew it must have been difficult, but he couldn't think of the right thing to say just then. Would it even matter? It was silly for a kid like him to tell the Kazekage he was proud of him. The two men dismissed themselves, and the group made their way toward the center of town and Suna's main administrative building. Only a few people were out this early, but those that were watched them curiously. The rooms we prepared for you are underneath the administrative building, on the same level as the Puppet Corps' development workshops, Gaara said. It's one of the most secure areas in the village, but fortunately, not scenic enough to appeal to the daimyo. This really stinks. He acts like he can come in here and do whatever he wants just because of some past stuff, Naruto said obstinately. It's not your fault your dad was a bad Kage. Naruto. Sakura hissed. What? He was awful to Gaara and partly why the third died, so as far as I'm concerned, you're right and everything, but don't go saying stuff like that where some of the daimyo's people might hear. Kankuro said. He's probably just here to remind us we wouldn't be going to war if he hadn't agreed. Last chance before we go off to fight and all that. Sadly, it would be nice if that's all it is, Temari said. They went into the administrative building and walked down a few flights of stairs to get to the floor where rooms had been made up for them. It gave Naruto a sinking feeling when he realized this place was even more confined than the hospital in Konoha. The underground space was dim and windowless, and very few people were allowed down there. As Gaara had promised, it was probably very secure, but it was still depressingly isolating. We're not going to stay down here all the time, are we? Naruto asked gloomily. No, Gaara assured. You can go anywhere you want in the village, as long as someone is with you. You'll have to stick with me a lot when your team leaves, but you won't be down here any more than you want to. He sounded apologetic. Naruto could tell that Gaara was doing the best he could, so he hid his foreboding feeling with a simple nod. Kankuro opened one of the wooden doors lining the hall. You each have your own room anyway. And please don't go into any of the workshops. Most of our development team has been relocated to Allied Shinobi Forces HQ, but we still have some projects in the works that I don't want anyone touching. OSU. Naruto yawned. Don't go in the creepy puppet rooms. Got it. I suggest getting some rest for now, Temari said. We won't be able to do anything as long as we're waiting for the daimyo to tell us what he wants to tell us. I doubt it's anything to do with you guys, but you should get a little sleep while you can. God, this is such a pain. Don't start with that, you sound like your boyfriend, Kankuro said. Shut the hell up, Kankuro. Ha. Sai said. I wonder, whatever you're about to say, don't say it. Sakura held up her palm towards Sai in a stop motion. Thanks for your hospitality. Sleep does sound nice. Naruto, halfway tuned out of everything, agreed that sleep did indeed sound nice. They had been on the move for almost 24 hours, and while they'd all gone longer without sleep before, it was starting to seem like a really good idea. Okay, wake me up if we're going to eat. Naruto yawned even larger than before and went in the room Kankuro had opened, which was closest at hand. He didn't care which room he got. He just wanted somewhere to lie down. It was obvious the room had only recently been converted into a place for someone to stay in. It had a raised bed with a small set of drawers beside it on one end, and on the other end a corral of worktables had been completely cleared off and pushed back against the wall. Naruto put his backpack on one of them. The windowless room was completely dark when he switched the overhead light off, so he left the door open slightly. He wasn't afraid of the dark, but he was slightly claustrophobic. He took off his shoes and hitait and flopped backward onto the bed with a sigh. Before drifting off, the same thought that had been nagging him the whole way resurfaced again. Even if Gaara wasn't going to make him stay in his room the whole time, it didn't seem like things would be much better than in Konoha. That was the problem. Everyone had outgrown him in this timeline. They were still his friends, definitely, but they surpassed him enough to automatically assume he couldn't do anything. He had just started getting some acknowledgement in his own time. Returning to the kid behind everyone else was really frustrating. The only thing that was really better was that everyone liked him now. Either he had to get a lot stronger or go home. And it looked like neither of those things would happen as long as he was kept hidden or supervised at all times. What were they going to do, wait until after the war? That was too long. For all they knew, Kabuto was the only one who could send him home. If Kabuto got killed in the war, Naruto could very well be stuck in this timeline. Assuming it could be undone in the first place. But what could he do? How was he supposed to get away from his friends, when the alternative was probably capture at the hands of Akatsuki? At least I'd be closer to taking them down if they captured me, Naruto thought before he drifted into sleep. Why is it so dark? A confused voice asked. Naruto's eyes flew open. Oh, the lights must be out. There's a door cracked over there. The voice mumbled, as if talking to itself. It sounded like an elderly man, but Naruto couldn't see anyone in the meager light from the hall, and he couldn't hear the sound of another body shifting around. Are you a ghost? Naruto whispered squeakily. Ah, Naruto-chan, is that you? It knows my name, Naruto thought, panicked. And there was only one person he could remember that had ever called him Chan, but that was many years ago. Sandaime-ji-chan? Naruto croaked, tears pricking the corners of his eyes. What are you going on about, boy? Are you still asleep? Sorry for waking you. Didn't expect you to be sleeping in the middle of the day. Naruto was about to answer, but then a squishy weight landed on his chest. Aha! There you are. The voice came from the lump on his chest. Naruto shrieked and flailed his arms wildly, trying to brush the thing off. He started up from the bed but tripped and stumbled and fell flat onto the floor. Hey, calm down, the voice said. You'll hurt yourself. Neither of us can tell which way is up in this darkness. Let me see if I can get the lights on. Naruto saw a black silhouette hop into the light coming through the cracked door, and then it disappeared again. The overhead light clicked on and he blinked against the sudden brightness. There we go, the voice said. That's better. Naruto craned his head and squinted. Sitting on the floor, on his eye level, was a small green figure dressed in a cloak, with thick gray eyebrows and a goatee. Naruto sat up quickly. A toad? That is right. Do you know who I am? No, sorry about trying to knock you off, though. You kinda surprised me. Naruto rubbed the back of his head with one hand. Ha ha! A little tadpole like you couldn't hurt me if you tried. You can call me Fukasaku. I was the one who taught Jiraiya-chan the sage arts. You taught Erosenin? Naruto rubbed his eyes. So what are you doing here? Did I accidentally summon you in my sleep or something? No, Fukasaku said gravely. We've been trying to find you for a while. The great toad sage had a very worrisome vision about you. Fukasaku-sama? Sakura pushed open Naruto's door. I knew I heard some kind of commotion. What's going on? Tsunade told me you were all here, Fukasaku said, turning to Sakura. And the details about Naruto-chan's situation. I need to speak with the young Kazekage. Will it be possible to see him right now? Maybe, Sakura said. He's been stuck visiting the Wind Daimyo, but his sister Temari-san told me they were done with their private meeting now. What the hell, Sakura-chan? I thought you were gonna wake me up. Naruto yawned hugely. It's not time to eat yet, so we decided to let you sleep. We wanted to talk to Gaara too, see if he could tell us why we had to rush here. I was about to come wake you so we could go to the council room. The Wind Daimyo is here? Fukasaku muttered. What would that have to do with anything? You think it's related to the great toad sage's vision? Sakura asked. Fukasaku shook his head. There's no point speculating. Let's go. Naruto wasn't excited about going to see the daimyo. He'd met nobles before, and they were all essentially the same. He'd never met anyone as important as the daimyo of one of the 5 great countries, but he didn't expect the grander title to be an improvement. They met Temari, Sai, and Niji at the top of the stairs. Temari led the way to the council's meeting room. Naruto was more curious about the toad's message than a vision some old toad had, but the others kept glancing at each other worriedly. The meeting hall was an impressive structure. It seemed disproportionately tall, until he noticed the 4 giant statues built into the far wall, all looking very intimidating and important. Wow! Naruto said, craning his head up to look at their faces. Those are the previous Kazekage. Sai told him. It's like our Hokage monument. The round table in the middle of the hall currently resembled a buffet. It was piled with fresh platters of meat and rice and vegetables and local delicacies Naruto couldn't recognize, but they still looked delicious. A single look in which set his stomach to growling. There was a small group at the table: Gaara, two well-dressed civilians who were probably lower nobles, and a man in long flowing robes that could only be Wind Daimyo Yamaguchi himself. One of the nobles had been talking, but everyone got quiet and turned when they came in. Ah, here they are, Yamaguchi said. Our visitors from Konoha. Come, sit down. No need for formality. Gaara nodded at them, and they all settled down awkwardly around the table. This was a strange place to have a meal, but from the looks of it, only the Wind Daimyo was eating. Being such an important guest, he could probably dine whenever and wherever he wanted to. I trust you all have rested well after your journey? Yamaguchi said. Gaara tells me you traveled rather quickly to get here. I was well aware of the arrangement between Suna and Konoha, of course. I just didn't expect the Kazekage to leave his village in a time of war to personally attend the transportation of Konoha's Jinchuriki. It would have been difficult to say whose skull was deeper, Temari's or Naruto's. Don't look so tense, Naruto-kun. Yamaguchi's eyes were usually squinted, but he opened them to look at Naruto now. It's nothing personal. I'm just thinking practically. It's everyone's duty to protect the interests of their own country before others. I thought everyone was supposed to be looking out for each other in this war. Naruto retorted. Besides, you can't tell Gaara what to, well, Sakura said brightly, pulling Naruto into a headlock. I'm so sorry about him, Yamaguchi-sama. He often forgets his manners. Yamaguchi laughed lightly and took a sip of his tea. Sakura-chan, you're choking me. She leaned over his head and murmured in his ear, so quietly that he barely heard it. Don't let him get a rise out of you. Then she let him go. Naruto dropped back into his seat feeling thoroughly disgruntled, but held his tongue. Gaara. Temari motioned toward Fukasaku. This is one of the elders from Mount Myaboku, Fukasaku. He said he needs to talk to you about something. You're one of the Toad Sages. Does this have something to do with Naruto? Gaara asked, brows scrunched. Fukasaku looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Naruto and then at the Wind Daimyo. Is this a conversation I should not be present for? Yamaguchi said amusedly. No, not at all. Fukasaku cleared his throat. I'm here to talk to Naruto-chan mostly. But when Tsunade told me about the situation, I knew the people responsible for his safety would have to be informed, too. Informed of what? Do you know something about how I got here? Naruto asked. I'm afraid not. At first, we didn't know about any of this. Fukasaku folded his webbed hands together on the table. He looked around at all of them seriously. As I said, the great sage had a vision. Chapter 13 Vision. Everyone waited for Fukasaku to continue. He cleared his throat and began. The great sage said the vision involved Naruto-chan at a younger age, but he insisted it was an event that hadn't happened yet. No one could understand what it meant. So we looked in the great sage's crystal ball, which uses natural energy to trace chakra patterns. I decided to go to Konoha when I saw that Naruto's chakra signature was appearing in two very different places. I've been trying to reverse summon myself to this one's location all along, but it was very difficult. Fukasaku looked at Naruto. It's similar, but something in your chakra signature has changed to the point where you are almost not recognized by the summoning contract anymore. What? Naruto sat up straighter in alarm. I thought that was just a temporary thing. Was it that bad? He glanced at Sakura. We did notice there was something interfering with his normal chakra signature, Sakura said. But Tsunade-sama said it was most likely outside interference, not a change in the nature of the chakra itself. That doesn't seem possible. Have you scanned his blood here? One of the reasons blood is used in the summoning contract is it carries a much more accurate sampling. It makes the contract much harder to fool. We did it at home, but… Sakura's eyes widened in realization. We didn't stay around to see what the result was. Did you tell Tsunade-sama about this? Yes. She gave the assistants at the lab an earful when she found out the sample was still in the queue. She will tell us the results when they come out, but there is certainly something wrong. The contract doesn't lie. But I'm me, Naruto said nervously. Even if there is something weird going on, I'm not some kind of imposter. You're not the same either, though, because you can't be, the Wind Daimyo said unexpectedly. He leaned forward in his chair, smirking. It's only logical, after all. The same person can't exist in the same way in more than one place at the same time. Even if you shinobi know how to make copies of yourselves. Otherwise, you would be nothing but a copy either, unable to act independently. There would be no meaning in even considering you as a separate being. Everyone was silent for a while. Naruto could feel a brain-twisty headache coming on. That could be, Fukasaku said finally. Whatever the case, I want to bring Naruto-chan to Mount Myaboku to see the Great Toad Sage. Maybe the two of them together can figure out what the vision means. Or maybe the sage will see something more clearly with Naruto-chan present. Gaara crossed his arms. You seem to think it means danger. Why? What did he see? It was a little vague, going by his description. I pressed him for details, but he said it was difficult to see because it's not a set path. It could change at any moment, depending on what everyone involved does. But yes, I believe it means danger. He saw this Naruto-chan in a dark space, laying on the ground in terrible pain. It's not clear where this was, he said it felt like inside, but that could mean anything from a room here to an Akatsuki hideout deep underground. In any case, our efforts to keep Naruto away from the enemy may fail. That is why I had to let you know about it, Kazekage. But what are we doing wrong? Temari frowned. When is this choice supposed to be made? Why worry about what some old geezer toad saw? Naruto said. He was not interested in being subjected to even more bodyguarding. Yamaguchi delicately wiped his mouth with a handkerchief. We promised to keep Naruto-kun safe. If we cannot do it, it will reflect badly on us in the eyes of the entire allied shinobi force. Maybe we've been thinking about this the wrong way. No doubt the enemy expects him to be sheltered among shinobi, so all of the great hidden villages are bound to be targeted. Instead, what if I brought him back to the Wind Capital with me? The two men sitting between Gaara and the Wind Daimyo shifted in their seats slightly. Yamaguchi-sama, one said quietly, leaning in toward the daimyo. Is it wise to bring a Jinchuriki to the heart of the Wind Country, especially one belonging to another country? Members of the court would protest. Many of them share your uncle's concerns about the hosts. Enough. Yamaguchi cut him off. The noble that had spoken fell silent, but gave Naruto a look he knew all too well. Disdain mixed with fear. A look that said he was mistrusted simply for existing. It was the first time someone had looked at him like that since arriving in the future, and he'd almost forgotten to watch out for it. Anger boiled deep down in the pit of Naruto's stomach, and his mind sifted through various ways he could ruin the noble's immaculate silks without getting caught. Or not. It would be worth it. I also disagree. It would be too dangerous. Not because of Naruto, Gaara added coldly, but because it would put civilians in danger if the enemy found him there. Mount Myaboku is difficult to reach even if someone knows where it is, Fukasaku put in. And there, we can start training him in the sage arts. I like that option, can we go with that? Naruto said. There was a pause. We have been tasked by the allied shinobi forces to protect him, Yamaguchi repeated. Though I see nothing wrong with letting him go there to train, at least, if it is a safe location. What would the effect be if he learns the sage arts sooner? Niji wondered. Who cares about that? Naruto waved his hands. Training me is a great idea. If I get stronger, you won't have to worry about Akatsuki anymore. Then me and Aniki can both fight in the war, and it will be awesome. Aniki? Sakura asked. I have to call him something, right? Saying older me gets confusing really fast. What are you, a gangster? Gaara rubbed his forehead with one hand. Naruto, please take this more seriously. The war is to stop Madara and Akatsuki, but it's also to protect you and the Eight Tails Jinchuriki. Their plot can only work if they get hold of you. We won't send you to war, even if you get stronger. Bachan said you were like this? Naruto crossed his arms. So why are you going if we can't? I'm not a Jinchuriki anymore. Naruto had been expecting some kind of excuse, but this threw him for a loop. What? I was already captured by Akatsuki before, Gaara said. And they took Shikaku from me. And I died. What? I'm only here today thanks to one of Suna's revered elders, Chiyoba-sama. She used a life transfer jutsu to bring me back. Extraction of the tailed beast has killed every Jinchuriki Akatsuki has captured so far. Had it not been for your future self and others from Konoha retrieving my body, or Chiyobu-sama, I would have been just as dead as the rest of them. Naruto uncrossed his arms slowly. Gaara, I can't say you should fight in the war, Fukasaku said. But if you train and become stronger, you can defend yourself better. The older you is also training in hiding. He is? Can I do what he's doing? Unfortunately, I can't help you there. From what I understand, he is learning from the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki about using the Biju's power. How to use it? I definitely want to learn that. I don't think you could, even if you had someone to teach you. Sakura shook her head. It's not just about doing things out of order. Your seal is going to start weakening gradually, and using the Biju's power too much could cause it to completely break. So, I have to wait until my seal is reset? Naruto slumped in his chair. How did you know about that? Kakashi-sensei told me? But he warned me not to use it too much, too. It's out of the question. Only the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki could teach you that. I can, however, train you in the sage arts, Fukasaku said. I guess I could settle for that. Settle? Fukasaku puffed up indignantly. On second thought, I don't know if you're mature enough to handle the sage training. Naruto straightened up. No, wait. I am. I take it back. I would love to train with you, Sannin Ji-chan. Ha ha, good. That's more like it. So, can I go? Naruto looked around at his teammates and Gaara. You should go to the Great Toad Sage and find out more about his vision, Gaara said. And it would probably be good for you to train. But when you are not training, I want you to stay here. I guess that's okay. Better than being stuck doing nothing all the time. This arrangement will work for now, Yamaguchi said. But we still need to consider what will happen during the war. Gaara will not be here, nor will most of Suna's forces. Nothing has to be decided today, Fukasaku said. But I would like Naruto to see the great sage as soon as possible. Gaara nodded. I agree. Go ahead. Fukasaku bowed his head briefly in acknowledgement, then clapped his hands together. They appeared on a long path that wound through large, brightly colored vegetation. The air was warm, almost tropical, and the smell of flowers and soil lay heavy in the air. Ah! Naruto yelped and stumbled when he went from sitting on a chair to sitting on nothing. What the hell? I've summoned us to Mount Myaboku. I'll give you the full tour later. For now, we need to see the great sage. At the end of the path was a temple with two large toad statues flanking the entrance. Everything here was so large and made Naruto feel shrunk, which was odd considering most of the toads he'd ever met were small. But then again, there were toads like Gamabunta around, too. Fukasaku noticed him gaping and smiled. Well then, shall we? So what kind of training is it, the sage arts? Naruto asked, following Fukasaku and looking curiously around at the scenery. The sage arts involve sensing and harnessing the natural energy of this world, taking it into your body and molding it with your spiritual and physical energies. The senjutsu that results from this fusion of energies is consequently very powerful. Naruto stared at him blankly. Huh? Don't worry if you don't understand it yet. I know you can do it, since you've done it before. Fukasaku frowned. For some reason, it seems you're already drawing natural energy toward you without realizing it. What do you mean? Natural energy is everywhere, but to use it, one must focus to gather it. Yet it's moving around you in a way that's unheard of for someone who hasn't been trained. Fukasaku swirled both of his froggy hands in circles in the air, trying to mime an invisible cloud. I was finally able to summon myself to you by tracking the disturbance in the flow of natural energy, rather than following your chakra directly. I think it worked because you were sleeping. You were in as much of a meditative state as you could be, and there was a lot gathered around you. Then it sounds like my training will be easy. Fukasaku gave a weary sigh. You're missing the point. Tsunade confirmed what I suspected. You are different from your counterpart in this time. We just don't know how or why. But I'm me. The more Naruto had to say it, the less certain he felt. I believe you. The fact the contract works even a little is proof. Regardless, your affinity for natural energy might not make things easier. Being saturated with it is very dangerous, so it's good you only attract it and don't absorb it unconsciously. What matters most is how well you can balance it with the other energies. You have less experience with chakra control at your age. I've done control training. Naruto objected. I've done tree climbing and water walking. Ero Sennin even taught me the Rasengan. And he said if I could do that, I could do anything. Oh. He tilted his head at the sudden thought. Is Ero-sennin going to help me train this time? You said you taught him this same stuff, right? Wait, does he even know I'm here? Fukasaku went silent for a moment. It was the kind of silence Naruto was learning to associate with people debating whether to tell him the truth or not. Sennin-ji-chan? The toad avoided Naruto's eye. When he answered, it sounded like he had a stone in his throat. I hate to be the one to tell you this a second time, but Jiraiya-chan is gone. He was killed fighting pain. Naruto stopped walking. Fukasaku stopped and looked back at him. That doesn't make sense. Fukasaku shook his head slowly. Naruto-chan, how could he get killed fighting someone I was able to beat? There's no way he would. We were able to come up with a winning strategy thanks to the information Jiraiya-chan got for us. Without that, we might have lost. The enemy was beyond our capabilities. To be honest, we were lucky it worked out the way it did. Bachan and Kakashi-sensei told me everyone was brought back. Fukasaku grimaced and bowed his head. Naruto crouched down to the toad's level. Tell me what happened to him. He went to Amigakure to find information about Akatsuki. By then, he had a hunch their leader was operating there. He wasn't looking for a fight, but when confronted by pain, he decided to take him down, and… Fukasaku paused, brow furrowed. Are you alright? Yeah. Naruto stood again. Where was I when all that was happening? I'm not sure. I think you were searching for another member of Akatsuki. Who? Naruto didn't wait for an answer. He continued striding down the path toward the temple. Fukasaku hopped faster to catch up to Naruto's longer strides. I'm sorry, I don't know. It didn't come up when we were training. Are you sure you're alright? I know it can be hard to accept, especially when it's so sudden. There's nothing to accept. It won't happen, so it's not really real. What? When I go back home, I'll warn everyone what Pain and Akatsuki are going to do. No one will have to die. If I learn the sage arts, and you tell me all about Pain, Ero-sennin won't have to find information about him. So, it won't happen. Naruto trotted up the stairs of the temple, energetic enough, but with a stiffness he couldn't quite mask. Naruto-chan, come on, this is the place, right? Naruto pushed the door to the temple open, and Fukasaku followed after him quickly. The great toad sage was basking in his pool, snoring slightly. His hat was tilted haphazardly to the side, but it somehow didn't fall off. This is the great toad sage? Naruto wondered aloud. Ahem. Fukasaku cleared his throat. Honorable geezer, I brought the younger Uzumaki Naruto. What? The great sage lifted his head and peeled his eyes open to look down at them. Who is that now? Uzumaki Naruto. Fukasaku repeated. It's the younger version you saw being attacked. Have you been able to see anything about it more clearly? The great toad sage blinked slowly and fixed his squinted gaze on Naruto. Yes, it is very worrisome indeed. Naruto took a step backward. What? It is still hard to see, it is in a very dark place. But I can see someone else now. A man wearing a mask. Is it Akatsuki? Fukasaku asked quickly. I sense HM. The sage scratched his head with mild puzzlement. Great hate and great love. Great enmity and friendship. A desire to kill and desire to save. I've never seen anything like this. But is Naruto-chan in danger? If so, what can we do to change it? The great toad sage hummed. It changed. I was able to see more. That means something has brought this outcome closer to reality. What? Naruto yelped. You mean we made it worse? What did we do? He looked at Fukasaku. A decision hasn't been made about where you will be staying during the war. Fukasaku reasoned. Your path hasn't been diverted yet. We have to make the right choice. In any case, Naruto-chan's life will be in danger if something does not change. The great toad sage rumbled. Honorable geezer, do you think it was the tailed beast extraction you saw? The great toad sage said. What are you asking about now? The tailed beast extraction. Fukasaku waved his arms. Akatsuki. Naruto-chan being in danger. Who is that again? Fukasaku sighed and shook his head. I suppose that's all we're getting for now. I don't get it. Did we really do something to make it worse? I left Konoha because it was supposed to be safer than staying. Naruto said. I don't know. But we're running out of time to figure it out. Do you think it's because the wind daimyo is in Suna? Naruto rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I mean, he dropped by sort of unexpectedly. He's the only thing making the situation at Suna different right now. And I don't really trust him. Maybe, Fukasaku said slowly. I don't know why he'd do anything to betray the allied shinobi force. Even with a reason, it would be risky, considering what is at stake if Madara wins the war. I'll keep my eyes open for anything suspicious, Naruto said determinedly. And we should start my training as soon as possible. Then I won't have to be there all the time. And I can be stronger. Alright. Before we begin, I'll have you re-sign the summoning contract in blood. You don't need it for the sage training, but I would like to know we can reach you if you get into trouble. Technically, you need Gamabunta's approval before you can sign it, but I'm sure it won't be a problem. Will it work if I've already signed it before? Naruto frowned. I think so, but this is an unusual situation. It already works a little. What if I tried to summon one of you? Would you come to me or to Aniki, or would it not work at all? I don't know. But go back and tell everyone what we were able to learn from the Honorable Geezer. Later tonight you can test summoning to see if it works. Do I have to go back now? Naruto said dejectedly. Can't we go ahead and start my training? I'll visit you tomorrow. After all, I told everyone I'd bring you back soon. I understand the Kazekage's perspective. This isn't the time to be doing whatever we want. Naruto sighed. This is almost exactly what Sakura-chan always said having parents was like. You're probably right. Fukasaku chuckled. But the same thing that applies there applies here too. It's just because they love and care about you. Naruto gave a small smile. I know. I'll send you back to the meeting hall, Fukasaku said. He hopped in front of Naruto and clapped his hands together. A moment later, Naruto was standing in the empty meeting hall. He looked around, momentarily disoriented and slightly surprised no one was around. Plates were left abandoned on the meeting table, but no one had come to clear them out yet. They must have assumed he'd be gone longer and ended the meeting. Naruto trotted toward the door, keen to get away from the gigantic statues, who seemed much creepier in the silence. The light from the windows made their faces long with eerie shadows. There you are, finally, someone said from behind him. Naruto whirled around. A man in a high-collared coat and an orange mask was standing where there had been nothing but empty space before. Who are you? Naruto growled, positioning his hands near the weapon pouch on his leg. The man dashed toward him and stretched out his arm. Naruto ducked to avoid it, but it wasn't a strike. The man grabbed his right wrist, the hand with a fistful of shuriken ready to throw. Naruto tried to pull away, but he couldn't move. The world around him stretched and twisted unnaturally, converging on the black hole in the orange mask. He had no choice but to dive headfirst into it. After the meeting adjourned, the Sand siblings and Team 7, plus Niji, had their own lunch in Gaara's loft apartment on the top floor of the administrative building. The panoramic view of the village spread out below, and the minimalist furnishing of the living room gave it a tranquil feel. Naruto's going to complain that we left him out, Sai said, breaking apart a bread roll. Sakura grinned. Especially if they tried to feed him over there. He's told me the kind of things the toads like to eat. But we'll make it up to him. Are there any ramen places around here? She asked Gaara, who was sitting on a couch near the windows. Yes, Gaara said. There's one near here he likes. They serve some local varieties that aren't available in Konoha. Ha! How do you know that? Temari asked. Probably because ramen is one of Naruto's favorite conversation topics, Sakura guessed. Of course he gave the Kazekage his expert opinion on Suna's ramen stands. Niji sighed. Just what is Konoha going to become when that guy is Hokage? His mouth twitched in a smile, but soon he turned serious. Will you let him stay with the toads when the war starts? Gaara leaned back and looked out of one of the long windows. Under the circumstances, most likely. Though Yamaguchi-sama does not want me to. Why? Sakura asked. I mean, I'm not entirely sure it's best to let him do his sage training earlier, but it would keep him occupied. And Mount Mayaboku is one of the safest places he could be. The problem is, we have no way of contacting that place unless one of them comes to us. I trust the toads, but if something happened, we wouldn't know. And Yamaguchi-sama believes Naruto would use it as an opportunity to escape the Land of Wind's custody. What? Sakura bristled. Excuse me, when the hell did Naruto become a prisoner of the Wind Country? Temari and Kankuro tensed at Sakura's belligerence and both glanced at Gaara. Old habits were hard to break, and it still made them nervous when someone took a hostile tone with their brother. Gaara turned from the window to look Sakura in the eyes seriously. The daimyo is a fool. Prestige and political control are his only concerns. You don't need to worry. At least, not about that. Is there something else to worry about then? Are you referring to what we had to hurry all this way for? Sai asked. Can you tell us about that? Gaara stood from the couch by the window and sat down on one of the empty cushions around the table. Yamaguchi-sama, while better than the previous daimyo, still carries some of the ingrained prejudice against the Jinchuriki that many in this country have. However, most of our nobility are even worse than he is. We noticed, Sakura said dryly. The treatment of Jinchuriki in this country has always been terrible. Gaara said softly. But Yamaguchi-sama is too much of a pragmatist to let superstition dictate everything he does. He allowed me to become Kazekage even before I lost Shikaku, because he believed I would be loyal to him. He assumed I wanted to distance myself from the previous Kazekage, the same way he wanted to from the previous Wind Daimyo. Did you know the old daimyo was assassinated, as our father was? Gaara inclined his head toward his siblings. Were the two assassinations related somehow? Sai asked. It didn't seem so, Gaara said. They happened 3 years apart, and the assassin was caught. I thought at worst Yamaguchi-sama hired someone to remove the former daimyo. But he's claiming innocence, and he seems to think someone is after him now. He looked at Temari and she nodded. Right, she said. When we were at the 5 Kage summit, the Tsuchikage graciously revealed that our country used Akatsuki's services in the past. When we came home, we dug up as much as we could about it. I had to pay a lot of visits to the Wind Capital in order to coordinate the investigation there. Sure enough, we discovered that our father and the previous daimyo made deals with Akatsuki. Yamaguchi-sama hadn't known about it either, or so he claims, but we were able to confirm the Akatsuki members involved were Sasori of the Red Sand and Orochimaru. You're saying Orochimaru had a connection to the Wind Country through Akatsuki? Sakura said slowly. That makes sense. But Orochimaru left Akatsuki long before he made the deal with your father, right? So if Yamaguchi-sama is afraid of Akatsuki coming after him, no. It's like this, Kankuro said. Orochimaru played the old Wind Daimyo and Kazekage against each other, which wasn't exactly hard to do, because they already hated one another. Orochimaru convinced our father that the daimyo was going to do away with Suna entirely and leave our country's defense to Akatsuki. On the other hand, he convinced the daimyo that our father was planning on staging a coup against the wind, which caused the daimyo to cut support for Suna even more, which made Suna even more willing to go along with Orochimaru. It was all a ploy so he could gain military backing to invade Konoha, and arg. Kankuro rubbed his forehead with one hand. What? Niji said. Long story short, Gaara said in a heavy voice. Yamaguchi-sama believes Orochimaru is the one behind the younger Naruto's appearance here, and he's convinced Naruto is a weapon planted by Orochimaru, to be used against us when everyone leaves to go fight in the war. That is why he wants to know where Naruto is at all times. That's... Sakura stood up. That's ridiculous. Orochimaru is dead. Where the hell did he get the crazy idea that Orochimaru is even alive, much less that he would care about the wind anymore if he was? Sai put a hand on Sakura's shoulder, as if reminding her to stay calm. On what basis do they suspect Orochimaru? That is why they fled here, Gaara said. Several residents at Yamaguchi-sama's castle were found dead, their faces missing. It resembles the technique Orochimaru used to infiltrate the exams and invade Konoha. Chapter 14: Darkness. The darkness expanded into a circular room carved from rock. The only light came from an oil lamp hanging above a stone chair. Naruto stumbled into the space, but he didn't fall. He took a split second to regain his bearings, then turned around to punch the masked man. To his surprise, the punch sailed through the man's head harmlessly. What? The masked man grabbed Naruto's arm and twisted it around his back. Naruto tried to wrench himself free, but in a matter of seconds his hands were tied together behind his back, and the man let him go. Naruto staggered from the sudden lack of resistance, and walked sideways into the wall. Now you can't weave signs, the masked man said calmly. Bastard! Naruto snarled, and he lunged at the man. But once again, he went right through. Your struggling is pointless. I suggest you listen quietly, instead of getting overexcited and using up all the air too quickly. This is a sealed room, and while I can escape it easily, you cannot. The masked man walked across the room and sat in the chair casually. Who are you? Where is this? Naruto demanded. This room is part of an old lair of Orochimaru's. We are working together, for now. As for who I am, it doesn't really matter. The allied shinobi force knows me as Uchiha Madara, but since that name probably means nothing to you, you can call me Toby. You're Madara? Oh? It seems you do know something, after all. Do not worry. I only brought you here to talk a little while. I will take you back after, if you still want to go back. Just want to talk? Yeah, right. You kidnapped me. I already know you're after the Kyuubi. You'll have to kill me before I let that happen. If I killed you, I wouldn't be able to get the Kyuubi. Toby sighed. Orochimaru tells me I can't extract the Bijou from you anyway, because he used a Zetsu clone as a base for constructing your body in this time. The cells will react if exposed to the immense yang energy of the Kyuubi, without it being guided by your will. I have no idea what you're talking about, but if you really aren't after the Kyuubi, why would you bring me here? I told you. I just want to talk. I have no reason to harm you, but I can help you. And I think if you knew the truth, you could help me, too. The great Toad Sage's words were still fresh in Naruto's mind. Suddenly, the old Toad's powers didn't seem so improbable anymore. And if they were real, that meant that he was in mortal danger, whatever Toby said. But he hadn't expected it to happen so soon. You're out of your mind. Naruto scoffed, putting his back to the wall, as far from Toby as he could get. What the hell makes you think I would ever want to help you? You're trying to force the entire world into war. You're in a position to understand me. Toby tilted his head thoughtfully. I tried negotiating with the 5 Kage, but that failed. You're an outsider here. You're able to see the state of the world for what it is. I'd explain it to your older self as well, but they have him hidden away and do not plan to let him near the war. So you can't kidnap him too, obviously. Naturally. But they do not understand you at all, past or present. I doubt the older you knows anything about the war. If he did, he would have already tried to confront me himself. He wouldn't care what you have to say. I know I don't. Isn't that because everyone is needlessly throwing themselves into danger for your sake? You have such a strong desire to protect your friends it doesn't matter what I have to say. Yet I have no grudge against your friends or you. In fact, everyone will benefit from my plan. Do you see how much better it is, then, to talk in person like this without interference? Naruto shifted and wiggled his hands experimentally behind his back. How about you untie my hands, and then I'll listen to what you have to say. No thanks, Toby said breezily. There's nothing you can do to hurt me, but I don't want you trying to smash your way out of this room. Naruto looked all around. There were no obvious exits. The room was completely sealed, like Toby said. Was there still a way to avoid what the great Toad Sage had seen in his vision? No choice but to wait and find a way out. It doesn't sound like you're giving me a choice. But I agree it'll make things simpler. I'll listen. Naruto sat cross-legged on the ground. But only listen. I think there's 100% chance that you're full of crap though, so don't be too disappointed when I laugh in your face. He kept scanning the place with his eyes while speaking. He wasn't about to accept there was no way out. Toby snorted. You're confident. I suppose you've heard a little about my plan already? Yeah. They told me about your Tsuki no Mi thing. Is that supposed to make sense? 'Cause making everyone live inside a genjutsu is just a lie. It's not a way to make things better. But I don't think you really care about that. You should understand. Or maybe not. You probably don't realize what the future holds for you, even though you're in it right now, because of how much information others are keeping from you. Naruto frowned. I know they've kept stuff from me, but they are just doing what they think is right. As much as it annoys me sometimes, they're just trying to keep me from getting hurt, I guess. Yet it's wrong for me to protect the world with a lie in the same way. That's different. Naruto scowled. Sure, I don't like them doing that, but it's not the same as taking over the whole world. You know nothing. You haven't seen the suffering war causes. You have seen some of the suffering our so-called peace causes, though. And you will only see more of it in the years ahead of you. The peace of the great hidden villages is often more destructive than their war, and Konoha is the worst of all of them in its sheer hypocrisy. Like what you want to do is better. Take the Jinchuriki system, for example. You and the other Jinchuriki had your lives sacrificed for the sake of peace. Most were not asked if they wanted this honor. They should be held up as the saviors of their villages, both because they hold back the tailed beasts, and because they help maintain a political balance between lands that reduces war. And yet, they are almost universally despised and mistreated. Naruto looked down at his lap, gritting his teeth. He'd thought the same thing plenty of times since finding out he was the container for the Kyuubi. But that didn't give the masked man the right to say it. You don't care about us. You're trying to kill us. Of course, they all call you a hero now. Toby continued. They've suddenly changed their minds. You got rid of Pain for them. You're the one who convinced him to betray me and bring all the villagers back to life. The truth is, though, you didn't entirely disagree with Pain's ideals. You must have identified with him on some level. That is the only way you could have made him turn his back on our plan. I knew him well enough to know that he truly desired peace. With both of you having suffered for the sake of it, the only thing surprising about your alliance is you made it to save Konoha. Lair, Naruto said quietly without raising his head. What? I said you're a liar. Naruto shouted. You're just twisting stuff around. I beat Pain and he had no choice but to bring everyone back. I would never agree with someone like him. He destroyed the village. He killed Erosenin. As soon as he said it, Naruto wished he hadn't. He'd managed to push that thought down somewhere deep where it had no chance of hurting him, tried to convince himself it was nothing but more motivation. But then he said it aloud. His throat worked, and he squeezed his eyes shut against the prickles in his eyes. I'm surprised you know about that, Toby said, unperturbed. But it isn't nearly that simple. Nagato, known as Pain to most of the world, Jiraiya of the Sannin, and you were aligned in your thinking. Nagato was simply more of a realist. Nagato's family was killed by Konoha shinobi during the Second Great Shinobi War, and participated in the Third soon after. Jiraiya could see the effects of the war and Konoha's participation in it. He took Nagato in just to ease his own feelings of guilt. He was like a second father to Nagato. So don't assume you know anything about what happened when Jiraiya died, or what took place when you met and spoke with Nagato. Naruto drew up his knees and rested his forehead on them. I don't understand any of this. That's why I am trying to explain it to you. I want you to know the truth. If you don't like it, that is all the more reason you should agree to what I am doing. As if I can trust anything you say. Unlike others, I have no reason to lie to you. Naruto looked up and narrowed his eyes at Toby. Yeah? If you really mean that, tell me how I can get back to my own time. You said you're working with Orochimaru? So that means he's really back? Toby considered a moment. It was impossible to see his expression behind the mask, but he crossed his arms and stared at Naruto a while. Naruto snorted. Yeah, that's what I thought. Toby chuckled. What are you laughing at? Nothing. You remind me of someone who died a long time ago. All right. It doesn't matter to me whether you go back or not. Your time and this one are on separate tracks now. Nothing you do there can affect what is happening here. Huh! Toby made a grand gesture with his gloved hands. You can go back and change anything you want, but it won't do anything except change the future of your own timeline. A world for me and a world for you. That sounds fair, doesn't it? Naruto wanted to make a snappy retort, but confusion won out. You mean this isn't my future? Does that mean I can't really know what's going to happen? This is the future you would have had, Toby said. The only change will be you. But you will find out how much difference that can make. After all, you're interested in knowing what will happen because you want to change it. And you can change whatever you want, for all I care. All that matters to me is the world that I am about to create here. The rest can go to hell. Then how do I get back? You would have to undo the summoning jutsu keeping your life energy bound to that body. When that happens, you should return to your own body in your own time. What? Naruto looked down at himself, startled. You mean this isn't my body? Moving bodies through space and time is on a completely different level, Toby said dismissively. I would explain it to you, but I doubt you could keep up. To put it very simply, Orochimaru used a technique similar to the Edo Tensei, except your soul and body are alive instead of dead. I doubt either is exactly normal, though. I am sure Orochimaru looks forward to examining the effects. I'm curious, too, how this bastardized jutsu of his differs from the Edo and Rinna Tensei. Naruto shivered. I thought Orochimaru was dead. Everybody's been saying Kabuto had to be the one behind it. Yes. He's turned out to be annoyingly resilient, hasn't he? It won't be long before everyone realizes. He's already started to move. So, that means I have to face Orochimaru in order to go back? Naruto murmured. He orchestrated all this, Toby said. But no. Nagato is the one who summoned you. You mean Pain? You said that's him, right? I thought he was dead too. Arg, I can't keep up with all this. Naruto shook his head. He is dead. But he was brought back with the Edo Tensei and forced to summon you. He and Uchiha Itachi escaped control and are currently missing. Before you can even think about going back, you have to find them. Orochimaru can't send you back even if he wanted to, and I doubt he wants to. But why did he bring me here in the first place? Who knows? Toby gave an unconcerned shrug. I don't think he's motivated by concrete reasons. From what I've heard, he likes to do things just because no one else has. He likes to disrupt, to upend a path just to see what happens, whether the result is good or bad. If there is a goal beyond that, I've yet to discover it. There was a long stretch of silence. Naruto did not want to believe anything Toby said, but the masked man really seemed to think their timelines were separate. Maybe he didn't have a reason to lie. But even if he was telling the truth, it didn't feel right. If Naruto found a way back home and never saw this version of his friends again, they would still exist, wouldn't they? It felt more complicated than just finding a way back home. Okay, so I have to find Pain, Nagato, whatever, Naruto said, and get him to send me back. But first I am going to help everyone stop you. I'll have to deal with you in my own time if I go back anyway, so I might as well figure out how to do that first. Toby tilted his head curiously. Didn't you understand what I said? This fight has nothing to do with you. Besides, this world is beyond help. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. I don't even know how to help. But I can't just accept what you're trying to do here either. I can't ignore what's happening right in front of me. This is getting us nowhere. Toby sighed. Naruto made a face. I don't understand what you want. Are you just trying to make me go home to annoy Orochimaru? Toby stood from his chair and walked over. He sat on the floor in front of Naruto so their faces were level. Naruto's heart jumped when he saw the Sharingan burning through the hole in the mask. He'd momentarily forgotten this man was an Uchiha. To be perfectly honest, I'm tempted to break you open and see if the Kyuubi is really out of reach, unless you can help me find your older self and the Eight Tails? The coldness in the man's voice cut like a knife. No? Toby responded to Naruto's silence. I'm sure you could be useful for something. But even if you don't want to help me, I genuinely think you're better off forgetting about this war and the people in it. I want to use the bijou, but they do too. You're so obedient, wanting to defend them even though they made you into a monster. You're like a poor stupid dog that licks the boot that kicks it. Bastard! Naruto yelled, and he tried to head at Toby, but missed. Instead of letting himself be phased through, Toby danced nimbly out of reach with a strange laugh. Naruto got to his feet, red-faced with anger and embarrassment at being taunted. It's true, and you know it. Toby became serious again so quickly it was unnerving. They only treat you well now because you're important. That doesn't change the fact that they see you as nothing more than a beast. I'm sick of listening to you. Either let me go or fight. You're lucky the Godame Hokage cares about you. That's more than could be said for the Yondaime, wouldn't you agree? He was cold-hearted enough to seal the Kyuubi into a child. Naruto knew he was being provoked, and he tried his best not to let it get to him. As much as he, sometimes, in the deepest and darkest part of his heart, hated what the Yondaime had done to him, he still acknowledged his greatness and strove to surpass him. Toby was trying to twist all that around. He did what he had to do to protect the village. Naruto said in a low voice, trying to keep his temper level as much as possible. He gave his life to keep the Kyuubi from killing anyone else. I'll let you in on a secret, Toby said, putting one hand on his hip matter-of-factly. There's plenty about what happened that day you know nothing about. It's just one of the many things that have been kept from you. I can tell you about it if you like. His words had a familiar ring to them. Naruto was suddenly reminded very powerfully of the time Mizuki told him about being the Kyuubi's container. Toby had the same mocking, self-assured attitude. He wasn't bluffing. And the only reason Naruto hadn't realized it yet was that they were alone. Iruka wasn't there to try to stop the masked man from doing something that couldn't be undone. Just like then, Naruto had an uneasy feeling in the pit of his stomach that told him something terrible was about to happen. And no. He grit his teeth and avoided looking at Toby. He shifted on his feet, ready to run, even though there was nowhere to run to. I do want to know, but not from somebody like you. There had to be a reason why they didn't tell me about it. Yes. You are right about that. Toby started pacing. It isn't just you. A lot of people don't know. Those who do pretend they don't. They don't want to tarnish their beloved Yandame's memory by acknowledging he made his own son a Jinchuriki. Naruto felt winded. The room tilted for a second and he had to lean back against the wall to steady himself. What did you say? He whispered. Toby made to put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, but Naruto jerked back, shouting, "Get away from me!" and tried to roll away to the side. He bumped into the wall and stumbled. "You're a liar," he mumbled. He looked around the room. Still no exit. A liar, you've gone back to that one then?" Toby snorted. "I guess that's to be expected. Sasuke was never as loyal as you, and even he had a hard time accepting the truth about them." "What are you talking about?" Naruto said in a flat voice. It didn't even sound like a question. "Jiraiya's death. The destruction of the village. The loss of your family and friends. And Sasuke, now an internationally wanted missing nin who has vowed to kill everyone in Konoha, starting with you. All of this is reality. Here and now. And you say this is somehow better than what I want." All of the vague answers about Sasuke, all the hints, and all the anxious looks came flooding back to Naruto's memory. He didn't want to believe. He wanted to continue thinking there was nothing wrong, that he'd known if something was. He wanted to believe they wouldn't keep anything from him that really mattered. But no matter how much he wanted to believe, he couldn't. Even if it's all true. He forced himself to turn and look at Toby. "I can go back and keep it from happening. If it all went wrong, I can change it. I can make it right. In all seriousness, I wonder. Do you honestly think that's different from what I am trying to do?" "You are a liar," Naruto said again. Toby sighed. "Fine then. I have to prove what I'm saying is true. Though, I doubt he's much in the mood for visitors right now." He took hold of Naruto's arm. Naruto tried to step out of reach, but his body was suddenly frozen, like when Toby captured him earlier. He was pulled through the black vortex once more. When they reappeared, they were in a dark stone cavern inadequately lit with the greenish glow of dozens of glass tanks set into the wall. After getting his bearings and looking around, Naruto felt a lurch of nausea as he realized that each of the small tanks contained a real, floating eyeball. "What do you want?" a voice asked harshly. He was sitting facing the tanks as if watching them, but the entire upper half of his face was covered with bandages, concealing his eyes. "Sasuke?" Naruto said, or tried to say. His mouth formed the word, but very little sound came out. "As you can tell, this is where he is staying these days," Toby said. "You may hope he's being held against his will, but that just isn't the case. Right, Sasuke? Who are you talking to?" Sasuke demanded. He stood, posture defensive. "Just an old friend of yours, though he's a little lost for words right now. You see, Naruto, Sasuke decided to join up with Akatsuki for a little while too." "Naruto?" Sasuke gave a quick, unamused laugh. "Quit joking around. Are you trying to get on my nerves?" Toby ignored him. Originally, he only decided to leave Konoha in order to chase after his brother. But that became full-blown hatred against the village after he learned they were the ones responsible for the Uchiha's demise. "Whatever you're trying to do, you're really starting to piss me off," Sasuke growled. His right hand twitched, and a single strand of electricity wound its way up his arm and then over his chest before disappearing. Naruto continued staring at Sasuke wide-eyed, his mind unable to comprehend or explain his presence. Accepting it and not accepting it seemed equally impossible. Toby stood behind Naruto and put both hands on his shoulders. "Sasuke promised to take revenge on Konoha, after finding out too late that Itachi was acting under orders from the Hokage. It's tragic, wouldn't you say? He killed his own brother over a misunderstanding." "Shut up about Itachi," Sasuke hissed, walking forward, lightning elemental energy bursting from his hand and enveloping his arm. "Don't talk about him in front of me. As you can see, he's still upset about it. He's quick to throw his anger around, even though he knows an attack like that can't harm me." Sasuke lunged with his Chidori strike. Naruto couldn't really comprehend anything beyond the immediate. The deafening chirp of 1,000 birds wiped out all other sounds, and his eyes tracked the speeding death rushing toward him. His instinct told him to shout out, but by the time the instruction went from thought to action, it was too late. All he felt was a heavy, slightly painful feeling in his chest. Maybe it was the shock of the electricity, or the disbelief, but the pain felt very far away. Naruto looked down and saw his best friend's arm, the pale white wraps darkening rapidly with blood. There was so much of it. The bright blue light crackled, throwing the angles of Sasuke's face into sharp relief at intervals. The corners of his lips turned down in confusion. "Sasu," Naruto began, but the blood rose in his throat and he choked on it. Flecks of blood landed on Sasuke's face, and he started as if he had been struck. Tears stung Naruto's eyes. Blood was running out between his lips and he couldn't get them to form any words. Sasuke stepped back, removing his arm with a quick motion that made Naruto give a strangled cry. He sank to his knees and then painfully onto his side, sputtering and curling around the gaping wound in his chest as he struggled to draw a breath. Light blue electricity crackled around his body in spasms. "What is this?" Sasuke demanded from somewhere far above him. "What is going on?" "That is your best friend's blood on your hands, I believe." Toby rematerialized where he had disappeared before. "Getting started on your promise already?" Naruto was choking and stuttering out indistinct sounds. He was trying to call out a warning, or maybe just willing Sasuke to understand. Toby was a liar. "I don't understand. How is he here?" Sasuke knelt down and reached out with trembling hands. His face twisting with confusion and shock, he felt Naruto's shoulder, his chest, and the wound pouring his lifeblood all over the floor. "No, it's a trick. It's impossible. What's the matter? I thought this was what you wanted." Sasuke stood and walked backward until he reached the tanks, bracing himself against them like he was off balance, leaving bloody handprints on the glass. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You're trying to play games with me, aren't you? I'll kill you!" Naruto wrenched his eyes open. He saw Sasuke through a vague mist, shouting at Toby. He tried to move his arms, but they were still tied behind his back. Sounds came to him in heavy, rolling bursts that made no sense. Sasuke's strength was draining from him at an alarming rate. He tried to keep his eyes open, but they refused to cooperate. He fell asleep to the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Naruto's senses came back to him slowly, one at a time. He opened his eyes in a careless, sleepy kind of way. He felt very comfortable. Unfortunately, that lasted only for the second it took for him to remember everything that happened. The memories hit like a freight train. Naruto's eyes widened and he sat up sharply, looking down and patting his chest. He noticed for the first time that he was wearing hospital clothes. That wasn't terribly surprising. What was surprising was what he discovered from the cursory inspection of his body, which was nothing. No gaping hole. No blood. Everything looked and felt completely normal. Had it all been a dream? It felt far too real to be a dream. "Naruto?" someone said gently. He turned his head to the side and saw Sakura sitting by his bed, wearing a small, tentative smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How are you feeling?" she asked in the same gentle tone, like someone talking to a frightened animal. The way she was acting was freaking him out. If it was meant to be reassuring, it was doing the exact opposite. "Sakura-chan? What happened to me?" he asked confusedly. "I thought I—" He put his hands up to his chest again. "How long have I been asleep?" "Only a couple of hours," Sakura said. Her eyes lingered on him strangely, like she was scrutinizing him. "Fukasaku-sama came back to us shortly after you were sent home. He realized you were in danger right away. But you were already gone. So that was real?" Naruto curled his fist into the fabric of the hospital shirt. Sakura nodded. "Before we could do anything, you just reappeared in one of the workshops downstairs. You were hurt pretty badly. We thought you were going to die. I couldn't get the bleeding to stop." Her voice became constricted. She closed her eyes. Naruto let his hands fall to his sides on the bed. But I feel just fine." "I know." Sakura looked down at her hands clenched in her lap. "One moment you were dying, then suddenly your body started regenerating, healing itself. You were able to regrow entire organs in minutes. Naruto, even for you, it wasn't normal." Naruto felt sick and afraid. Sakura looked back up at him again. Their eyes met and the air between them hung heavy as a funeral, but far more delicate. Naruto's mouth felt very dry, and he swallowed. Sakura-chan, my memory might be really messed up or something, but for some reason I remember it was Sasuke. He had hoped beyond hope she would react with surprise, confusion, even derision. But no. All he saw was grief. Yes. Chidori. I thought that's what it looked like. Chapter 15, Team. Chidori. What? Naruto didn't know where to begin. He waited for Sakura to explain what was going on. She stood and put her hand over his. Hold on a minute. I have to let the others know you are awake. Let the Suna medics take a look at you, okay? Please. She gripped his hand tightly. Please hold on just a moment. Naruto looked down at her hand and then back up at her, as she gave a final painful smile and pulled the screen open to the rest of the room. Uzumaki-san? One of the Suna medics stepped up. He wasn't acting as strange as Sakura, but his movements were tentative, almost flinching. Naruto felt like he'd woken in a world on the verge of exploding. I'm going to check your pulse and listen to your heart and lungs, to make sure that everything is working fine now. Is that all right? Naruto wasn't really listening. It was all real. It was real. Somehow, he had missed every single thing that was most important. And they had known. They knew Sasuke was with Akatsuki. That he left Konoha. He was gone. Out there, and no one was doing anything about it. Sasuke, in Akatsuki. He was part of the group trying to find and kill his older self. He was a traitor. But Tobi had said he just wanted revenge because Itachi acted on orders. That it was the Hokage that had told him to do it. Did they know that too? What the Hokage had done? What the village had done? And the Yondaime, brushing against that thought was like touching a white-hot knife. Naruto whimpered and clutched the sides of his head and curled up, chin on his knees. He tried to shut out the stabbing voice in his memory, but it refused to stop. The truth is, though, you didn't entirely disagree with Pain's ideals. You must have identified with him on some level. The only change will be you. But you will find out how much difference that can make. Uzumaki-san? What's wrong? The medic asked urgently. All of this is reality. Here and now, and you say this is somehow better than what I want. Do you honestly think that's different from what I am trying to do? The medic reached out to touch Naruto's arm, but jerked back when a wisp of red flickered over it like a flame. Naruto shuddered. Bubbling, agitated red energy started seeping from his tenketsu. It ran over his spine and spread down his arms to the tips of his fingers, nails lengthening into sharp points. What's going on? A couple of other medics had rushed over. It's the Bija. He's starting to lose control. They only treat you well now because you're important. That doesn't change the fact that they see you as nothing more than a beast. He dug his long fingernails into the mattress and his back arched as his muscles and bones shifted around into a more animalistic configuration. Oh my God! What do we do? Someone get Gaara-sama right now! Naruto's body burned. His skin cracked and peeled. Everyone was yelling in panic and confusion. Their fear made the hard wedge of grief and anger dig even deeper into his heart. More and more demonic chakra bubbled and frothed around him, and the more of it there was, the stranger his transformation became. Something was happening that had never happened before. When the second tail of the chakra cloak had almost formed, strange knobs growing along his skeletal structure burst into twisted, lethal-looking spikes along his spine, shoulders, and collarbone. The ever-increasing outpouring of energy only made them grow larger and deadlier. They weren't made of bone. They were made of wood, a dark, almost black wood corrupted by toxic chakra. The more energy that seeped from his tenketsu, the larger they grew. Something dark streaked across the room and wrapped around Naruto tightly. He looked through hazy eyes to see Sai painting across a scroll with frantic speed. Long ink snakes jumped off the paper and launched themselves at him. Naruto gave an inhuman roar. The energy swelled and burst the ink constructions holding him down. Snarling, he swiped his hand at Sai and dark vines broke out from under his skin and rushed toward him. Sai's eyes widened. The vines were knocked to the side by a wave of sand, and before he could grasp what had happened, Naruto saw and felt the sand surround his body. He snarled in frustration and struggled, but every movement he made added another layer around him. It just kept piling on until his entire body was encased in it, up to his neck. He couldn't move. Screaming out angrily, he bared his teeth at his assailant, and saw Gaara. Gaara stared back, hands raised, ready to manipulate his sand at a moment's notice. He knelt in front of Naruto. Something in his look made Naruto stop. You are the last person I ever wanted to see with those eyes, Gaara said. He put his hand on the sand encasing Naruto. Seal lines appeared from the point of contact and stretched all around. The bubbling started to die down, and Naruto cried out in pain as the shards of wood shrank back into his body. The corroded energy retreated. The sand loosened and fell from around him in a softly hissing stream. Drained and weak, Naruto slumped forward and Gaara caught and steadied him. Gaara! Naruto choked out weakly, and he gripped the front of Gaara's shirt and dug his face into it. Gaara froze for a moment from the unaccustomed contact, but then put his arms around his friend. As he started sobbing into Gaara's chest, he felt incredibly young, like the weight of trying to hold the world suddenly collapsed. Tears were also swimming in Sakura's eyes. She climbed up beside them and hugged them too. Sai joined in on the other side. Neji let out a long breath that he had been holding and put his hand comfortingly on top of Naruto's head. Fukasaku was too small to join in the embrace, but he put his webbed hand on Naruto's back. Everyone, leave us for a moment, Gaara said, looking over his shoulder at the crowd of medics, ANBU, and random shinobi that had heard the commotion and rushed to investigate. But Kazekage-sama! Leave! I'll be out soon. Sir? They all bowed and left reluctantly, looking back at the huddled group and murmuring amongst themselves. They stayed like that for a while, Naruto's body shaking and heaving with sobs while his friends clung to him. He cried as he hadn't cried since he was very small. He felt angry at everyone. He wanted to push all of them away. But for the moment, though he hated his own weakness, he couldn't reject the physical comfort of 5 pairs of hands holding him steady. For the first time, there were people willing to take the pain spilling out of him and hold it close, and he had never needed that so much. And that's how it is. He might survive this experiment, he might not. It's between him and Orochimaru now, Toby said. Sasuke stood silently at the lab's deep sink, washing his hands and arms. The blood-stained wraps lay in a pile beside the sink. Why is Orochimaru still around? Itachi sealed him with the sword of Totsuka. Sasuke forcefully turned off the spigots and dried his hands on the hanging towel as if he had a grudge against his own hands. He has a way of escaping through the smallest opening. Very snake-like, wouldn't you say? And why did you bring him here? Sasuke said, turning to him angrily. What is Orochimaru trying to do? Why do you care? I don't, Sasuke said. I want to know why Orochimaru is trying to interfere. And why you're going along with it. You planned all of this. You wanted us to meet. I'm also curious, Black Zetsu said. Both halves were sticking out of the ceiling. The plan was to separate him from his friends so Orochimaru could get him. Why did you change your mind? I said I would take him back if he listened. Fair is fair. Sasuke's lip curled in derision. You tricked me. Toby shrugged. Orochimaru wanted me to tell Naruto the truth, and let him decide whether to leave them or not. I thought seeing you might give him more motivation. After all, leaving of your own will is almost a driving force in itself, wouldn't you agree, Sasuke? Sasuke didn't answer. Toby gestured. He didn't seem very happy about it. If he does leave them, what will you do? If it's really him from the past, which I'm not saying I believe, he's just an unimportant weakling, Sasuke said. If he can distract Konoha, all the better. But I would like to have a talk with Orochimaru. You'll have to wait for that, Toby said. In exchange for my help, he's carrying out Kabuto's plan for strengthening Densetsu. The war will be starting very soon. But when the time comes, I'm sure you'll be able to make your mark. Sasuke clenched his fists. He understood very well Toby was using him from the moment he first got involved with Akatsuki. But to be used so blatantly, to be complicit in whatever game Orochimaru was playing now, that pissed him off. Once he could use his eyes, he would make his mark in his own way. Not the way anyone else wanted him to. I don't care if you were going along with what Orochimaru wanted, or whatever, Sasuke said. I won't forget it. I'm sick of dealing with you guys. As soon as I can, I'm going my own way. Oh, White Setsu said in a stage whisper. Sasuke-kun is mad at us now. That is fine, Toby said. I'm sure you will think of plenty of things to do on your own. For now, concentrate on taking good care of those eyes of yours. He turned and headed for the door. Zetsu melted into the ceiling and disappeared. Sasuke bundled the blood-stained bandages and shoved them into the trash can by the sink. He was angrily formulating plans. That was pretty much all he did these days. But now he had a better idea of what was happening outside. He would definitely pay a visit to Orochimaru soon. Baki was relieved to be back in Suna, even if it was only temporary. He was glad for the alliance and proud to see shinobi of different nationalities working together, but for him, nothing beat the sight of home. He first realized something was wrong when he went to report to the Kazekage and saw ANBU guards in plain sight. His concern went up further when he saw samurai wearing green, high-collared desert tunics with red silk sashes embroidered with the kanji for Kaze, the personal guard of the Wind Daimyo. As he approached Gaara's office, walking without challenge past the guards, he saw that the door was slightly ajar. Someone was talking. It is a curious transformation. Doesn't Konoha have a shinobi who can use the Shodai Hokage's Mokutan no Jutsu? Perhaps we could get his opinion on it, try to determine if this one can use it too. My lord, I object. We absolutely cannot allow the boy to keep running wild and putting our citizens in danger. It's well enough for Konoha to shove their problems on us. Did you just interrupt me, Ishida? The first voice said in a steely tone. I'm sorry, I spoke out of turn. Please forgive me. Baki felt something crunch under his feet when he approached the door. He looked down and saw sand lightly scattered in the hallway. Come in. He heard Gaara call from in the room. The Kazekage sounded tired. Baki pushed the door open and walked in. Excuse the intrusion. I didn't realize you were here, Yamaguchi-sama. He bowed at the Wind Daimyo, who was sitting down on a richly draped couch that had not been there before. It's fine. Report, Gaara said. Baki cleared his throat and looked at Yamaguchi and his cousin Ishida, a lower member of the royal house, and then back at Gaara. He wanted to know what was going on, but he put it to the back of his mind for the moment. All forces are officially assembling now. Anyone going that hasn't left yet should do so very soon. The Reikage suggests we bring everyone together at least once to get a clear idea of what the divisions will look like. The division commanders will be formally introduced at that time. It's finally happening then. Ishida sniffed. Everyone is leaving and we'll be stuck with that beast, completely defenseless. As pathetic as my cousin's whining sounds, Yamaguchi started. He does have a point. The Jinchuriki is from Konoha. It's all but confirmed Orochimaru is behind his appearance here. Though he is a missing nin, he's also from there. As a foreign power and former enemy, can we really be certain Konoha's intentions toward us are pure? Had you not gotten there so quickly, Kazekage Dano, I'm certain the boy would have killed everyone there and continued his rampage until someone put him down. I hear he even lashed out at his own teammate. You of all people should understand why we must seriously reconsider keeping him here with little defense for our people. That's exactly what I'm saying. Ishida insisted. We need to call our best sealing masters to put him up for the duration of the war, then he'll be Konoha's to deal with again. I don't understand why we had to agree to this in the first place. Gaara rubbed his forehead with one hand. Baki got the feeling that he'd been doing that a lot in the last few hours. Getting the Mokutan user to come here is a good idea, if it's possible, Gaara said with remarkable steadiness. He's helping guard the older Naruto currently, but it would be good to get his opinion on this. And if Naruto can use that power, maybe Yamato-san can help him figure out how to use it to suppress or control the Kyuubi. Very well, Yamaguchi said. As long as he stays under control somehow. We absolutely cannot have a repeat of the earlier incident while everyone is gone. Gaara's frown lengthened just a fraction. Yamaguchi-sama, if you're worried about Suna being destroyed by Naruto, why don't you go back home to the capital? I may, Yamaguchi said breezily. But traveling across the desert is so tedious. I think I'll wait to see if anything else interesting happens here. Yamato was enjoying a rare nap. Ever since Naruto learned how to stabilize the Kyuubi chakra mode, his job had been relatively easy, though not boring. It was never boring with too loud and enthusiastic Jinchuriki around. The downside to that progress was it would undoubtedly get harder to convince Naruto to stay hidden within the great turtle's shell. Fortunately, for the time being, Killer Bee was keeping him busy with control exercises using the giant clawed hands he could now form out of chakra. Yamato received a very rude awakening when something slammed hard into the self-made wooden bench he was reclining on. The bench flipped backward, dumping him to the floor and landing over him like a wooden tent. The wood immediately began to sprout and grow, entangling him. Sorry, Yamato Taishu. Naruto peered through the triangular hole created by the bench and the floor. You were behind a thing I was trying to pick up and, well, I missed. It's fine, But turn that off, you're making it worse, Yamato said exasperatedly as the wood started growing roots into the floor. Whoops! Naruto clapped his hands and snuffed out the golden aura surrounding his body. Are you stuck? I got it, Yamato sighed. He sunk up through the wood and climbed out of the top of it, then hopped down to the floor. I think I was about to run out anyway, Naruto said, looking down at his hands with a tinge of disappointment. I really want to make it so that the mode lasts longer. Guess I just need to keep practicing with it. B joined them. If you keep on trying, I'm sure you'll get it. But if you and Kyubi never get along, you'll never really hit it. Yeah. It can't be helped. I'll just make do with what I've got. Yush. Naruto clapped his hands together and the golden aura flared around him again, but only briefly. It sputtered and went out in a second. Naruto leaned with his hands on his knees, winded. You've been at it all day. You should rest for a little while, at least, Yamato suggested. Naruto sighed and flopped on the floor, leaning his back against the overturned bench. Where did Huge Eyebrows Sensei and those other guys go off to? I'll go see. You just take a breather there. I'll be right back. I want to try with the Bijudama again a little later, Naruto said to B as Yamato left. I still need to figure out the chakra proportion thing. Whatever. It'll take a while to learn it, B said, crossing his arms critically. You gotta feel it for yourself, or your game's weak. But every time you try it, you get beat. Don't worry about the Bijudama, it'll sink in. You've got other powers to help you win, Bakayura. Yeah, but I almost got it last time. It's the ultimate move of a Jinchuriki. I want to be able to do it too. Naruto stifled a yawn. Heh. Tibeo brat. He quirked a smile. All right. Keeping up the momentum is what we do best. Don't fall asleep now, we're not done yet. Enjoy your rest, cause when you're ready to go, I got another test. Yahoo! Really? What is it? Naruto asked excitedly. Yamato walked out of the blank white room, past the headless statues and into the sun. He shielded his eyes against the sudden glare. Ah, Yamato-san, Moda said, trotting up to him. Nice timing. We were just trying to think of a way to get you that wouldn't look suspicious. Why? What's going on? Yamato looked around and saw Asuna Shinobi coming over to them, flanked by Aoba and Tsugi. Yamato vaguely remembered him as the former instructor Tagara, and someone who currently held a significant position on Suna's council. Baki-san, isn't it? Yamato said, holding out his hand. Baki shook it. Sorry to be so abrupt, but the Kazekage wants you to come to Suna right away. The Hokage has been informed about the situation, and she orders it, as well. To Suna? Yamato blinked. Why? It's the younger Naruto-kun, Aoba said. Apparently he was sent to Suna in order to be protected, but unfortunately, there has been some kind of problem, of course. Yamato sighed. To say the least. I'm not even sure how to explain it all. Baki paused, conflict plain on his face. No one knows exactly what's going on, but it seems this younger Naruto has at least a portion of Senju Hashirama's power. He lost control of his bijou a few days ago, and when that happened, it seems he also manifested some form of Mokuton. Whether it is the real thing or not, we don't know. Everything around his appearance in this time is a mystery. What? Tsunade-sama told me they found some traces in a scan, but actually being able to use it is. We want you to see him and give your opinion on the matter. There's something else you should know, too. If all this wasn't enough, the Wind Daimyo is in Suna at the moment, and he is highly suspicious of this little Naruto. He's making matters worse for the boy by creating a mood where people fear he could lose control at any moment, the way Garasama was when he was that age. Suna supports Naruto-kun in our time, but some are starting to doubt whether the younger version of him is worth the same trust. They just can't forget the way things used to be. The daimyo says he won't consider letting him train or do anything until you arrive, since you're more proficient at suppressing the biju's chakra than our own sealers. Not that it matters, with the way he is right now, at any rate, please come quickly. The way he is right now? What do you mean by that? I don't want to go into all the details right now, Baki said hesitantly. It's best if Garasama and the other Konohanin explain it to you. What a situation to pop up right as we're about to go to war. Yamato scratched his head, considering. I think this Naruto can get along without me for now, especially with B-sen here. But what are we going to tell him? Tell him you've been called back for the reconstruction, since he's learned how to control the biju's chakra himself. Aoba suggested. Has he shown any sign of awareness there is another version of himself running around? Baki asked. Yamato crossed his arms. None. I've been watching him, but honestly, we'd know if he did. He isn't exactly one for subtlety. I wonder what it could mean, Sugi said. It doesn't seem his younger self has given him any memories from all of this. Maybe he loses his memory of it after the fact, Aoba said. Or maybe, he isn't really. Yamato nodded solemnly. It's almost certain our version is the real thing. We shouldn't jump to conclusions on anything beyond that. I hate to interrupt, but I really need to be going now, Baki said. I have to report to the Reikage concerning the mobilization of the last of Suna's forces still at home. I won't be able to go with you to Suna this time, but I'll be returning later in order to act as administrator in the Kazakage's absence. Please get to the village as soon as possible. They'll be waiting for you. Understood. Yamato returned the slight bow and watched Baki leave, a foreboding feeling creeping over him. That aside, what do we do if the older one does figure it out? Aoba wondered out loud. At least when it comes to the war, we know we just have to keep him inside. With this, we have no idea if he could remember or sense something at any moment, even if he is under the turtle's shell. This is a completely unprecedented situation. Tsunade-sama was going to send Iruka-san and some others as backup soon, Yamato said. All of you will have to do the best you can. We still have the barrier team as a last resort. We can only hope it doesn't come to that. Has Gaisen found any trace of that shark summoner from Akatsuki yet? No, Sugi said. No sign he escaped, or that he's even alive, even though Guy keeps insisting something doesn't feel right. Yamato nodded thoughtfully. They had discovered the Akatsuki spy in their midst the first time Naruto had used his Bijou Chakra mode and sensed him hiding inside of Samahata, the sword be adopted for his own. After a long and arduous fight, the strange fish-like man had encased himself in a water prison jutsu and proceeded to be torn apart by his own shark summons, or so it appeared. When the jutsu broke, it had all dissolved into water. There was no body, not even a trace of blood. Guy had a funny feeling about it, considering the man had faked his own death once already, and went out to search for any clues. We've already changed course, Moda said. Just to be on the safe side, we're moving the island to another location. Right. Let me know if anything turns up. Yamato walked back into the cool shade of the cave-like temple, past the headless statues once again, toward the blank white room. When he stuck his head in the lock in order to open the door, he heard a sudden loud crash from inside. He jumped and hit his head on the inside of the lock and cursed. He backpedaled quickly, rubbing the back of his head and muttering as the door slid open. Ha! Did you see that? Naruto said exuberantly. Yamato walked in to see that his bench had been ripped out of the floor, roots and all, and tossed across the room. It now resembled nothing more than a strange rectangular bush. Little pink flowers were starting to bloom on it. Naruto, Yamato called, beckoning. Come here for a minute. Naruto stopped his celebrating and looked over to him, turning off the Bijou Chakra mode again and trotting over. What is it, Yamato Taisha? Are we going to eat soon? I'm starving. No. Well, maybe. I mean, that's not it. Yamato shook his head to clear it. I'm being called back to Konoha. Since you have gotten the hang of the Bijou Chakra mode, Tsunade-sama wants me to come back in order to help with the reconstruction. But even though I'm leaving, you should be getting some reinforcements soon for your mission here. Oh, right. Naruto scratched his head. I kinda got distracted from my mission. I guess it's about time I get back to it. No, your training is important too. Yamato interrupted. There's no rush. This is a big opportunity for you, and don't forget that Konoha will also benefit from having a fully trained Jinchuriki. That's why Tsunade-sama is sending a backup team. If you say so. Naruto said doubtfully. Well, when they get here, I'll definitely lend them a hand. This mission was my responsibility, after all. Yamato just nodded. He didn't want to press the topic too much. Iruka and the others would have to come up with something on their own. Good luck, Naruto. I hope everything turns out well, he said with such sincerity that Naruto gave him a strange look. Thanks, you too. Get the village put back together for me, Naruto said with a confident grin and a thumbs up. Yamato left as soon as he packed his bag and gave everyone a final farewell. He set out for the Wind Country with trepidation nicking at him. This was definitely not the first time he had been reassigned on short notice with very few details, and he knew it probably wouldn't be the last. But this had to be one of the most bizarre assignments he'd ever received. He was far more familiar with the current Naruto, though his ANBU duties had occasionally put him near the boy in the past. Most of what he knew was told to him by Kakashi. But there had never been any problems with him the way Suna had with Gaara at that age. The seal was solid. Unless something had changed, their fears were completely unfounded. That, in itself, was enough to make Yamato want to go. The kid had been through enough. Chapter 16, Kyubi. Naruto the Younger was released from the hospital the same day he had been admitted. There was no hint of damage left from the Chidori, but he stayed bedridden in his room for a few days. Sakura didn't know what to make of it. When he was awake, his eyes stayed half-lidded, and they rarely focused on anything in particular. They hadn't gotten much of an answer out of him so far as to what had happened. To make matters worse, their time remaining in Suna was quickly running out. Whether Naruto recovered or not, and despite what they wanted, they would have to leave soon to join the other troops in the Lighting Country. The only people remaining here for him would be strangers. Yamato, Baki, and the Wind Daimyo would be the ones in charge of him then. Sai sat down in the chair beside Sakura quietly. She glanced at him from her book and attempted a smile, but it never fully formed. Naruto was asleep on his back in his bed, head turned away from them. "Has he woken up even once today?" Sai asked. Sakura shook her head, biting her lower lip in worry. Sai frowned. "Do you think?" He started hesitantly. "Could be possible Madara used Tsukuyami on him?" Sakura grimaced. She shut her book and gripped the edges of it. "I don't know. He is showing many of the symptoms, but part of what makes the recovery process so long is the physical damage to the chakra pathways caused by a heavy genjutsu like that." She flinched. "But we can't forget, it's undeniable that he was hit with Sasuke's Chidori. It may not have really been him. Madara could be trying to trick us. Sasuke did say he would fight Naruto to the death, but do you really think he'd bother with the younger version? It wouldn't be a challenge for him." "You're right," Sakura said slowly. "But I'm not sure we should be relieved if it wasn't really Sasuke. Why would Madara bother doing this if he already had Naruto in his clutches? Why would he go through the trouble of traumatizing and then punching a hole through him if he's only interested in the Kyubi? Until Naruto tells us what happened, all we can do is guess." Sakura buried her face in her hands. Kakashi-sensei was right. We should have told him sooner. It still would have been bad, but we have no idea what he saw, and now, if it was anything like what Itachi showed you. Sai looked away. I thought it was the right thing too. But it was naive to think the chances of the enemy reaching him were so low. We let our feelings cloud our judgment. Sakura lowered her hands and curled them into fists on her lap. It may be too late now, but I won't make that mistake again. And I don't know what Madara was trying to do, but he better hope we don't cross paths. Sai laughed lightly. I'm sure we'll get the chance for that when the war starts. He stood from his chair. What are Niji and Gaara doing? Sakura asked him, turning in her chair to watch as he went toward the door. Negotiating, as usual. Sai said. Ishida still wants to put suppression seals on Naruto until Yamato Taisha gets here. Sakura stood, radiating fury in no time flat. Aha, Sai said nervously. You know he can't really do anything. No one ever listens to him, not even the daimyo. Maybe they'll tuck their tails and get out of here when all the strong shinobi leave. Sakura said furiously. I don't even want to think about leaving Naruto with those guys around. Baki-san will do the best he can. Yamato Taisha will be here too. Sai paused. Are you coming to the meeting? Sakura slumped her shoulders. I'm coming. She followed Sai out the door and shut off the light. She cast another look at Naruto's back before closing the door softly behind them. The room was dark when Naruto opened his eyes. He wasn't completely unconscious as much as they thought, but he had been drifting in a half-asleep torpor most of the times he wasn't. Sometimes the conversations going on around him reached, and other times they did not. He heard snatches of the outside world as if from far away. Sometimes he felt a hand on his forehead, or pushing a stray lock of hair from his face. Sometimes he heard people saying his name, which was usually soft and friendly, but other times came to him in a low, sinister whisper. It was difficult to tell what was real and what was not. He had to untangle the knots his mind carefully and slowly. If he thought too hard about anything or examined his feelings too closely, the hissing, stabbing voice would come back and threaten to rush over him, spilling boiling anger and helplessness into his veins. After a while he realized it wasn't Madara's voice tormenting him anymore, but another. The way things are going, they'll lock you up the moment they get the chance. Are you just going to lay there and let it happen? He never answered it, normally. He was afraid to, after what happened at the hospital. But the voice would not leave him alone. It had been trying to get his attention for over a day now. Naruto closed his eyes and slowly opened them again on the other side of enormous barred gates, looking up with tired eyes at the vast silhouette vaguely outlined in the dim light. If they want to do it, they will, he said. His voice echoed around the chamber. If I try to fight, it'll just make things worse. They already think I could be some kind of lab experiment put here to mess things up in the war, and I don't know if they're wrong. The red eyes high up above Naruto narrowed and bent down closer to him. If they're going to think that anyway, why not fight? We'll be stuck in this annoying world if you don't do something, idiot brat. World, I told you we're in the future. It's not my fault you've been taking a nap this whole time, or whatever it is you've been doing. A deep, low growl started up from deep in the darkness. Small ripples spread from the edges of the bars and washed over Naruto's feet. He watched the water lap over his toes impassively, and then raised his head back up. What's the point going back anyway? He said in a barely audible voice. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. If I go back and try to make everything how I want, I'd be doing the exact same thing as him. But I can't let everything happen the way it did either. Besides, there are some things I couldn't, no matter how much I wanted to. This container is suffocating me. The QB hissed. I haven't been able to think clearly since we got here. If I stay in this prison, it is going to eat me alive. I couldn't give a damn what else you do. We are going to leave this crappy future, no matter who we have to claw through to do it. It won't work, Naruto shouted back, clenching his fists. No one's going to just let us go looking for the way home. And if I try to use your power, someone will get hurt, and that won't solve anything. Kakashi-sensei told me the seal nearly breaks in the future because I used it too much. Then go ahead and break it yourself. The QB growled so low that Naruto felt the vibrations in his chest. If you do, you won't have to think anymore. You won't have to worry about anything. You can get everyone back for lying to you all this time. Naruto took a step backward. Frothing, malicious chakra crept over the surface of the water toward him. It rolled and built up and formed itself into the giant head of the demon fox, baring its teeth at him. Small tendrils of acidic energy wound up his legs and arms like steam, stinging the skin. Naruto stared into its eyes, his mind starting to go blissfully blank. The fox's head grinned, front legs forming, with claws ready to sink into their victim. No! Naruto shouted suddenly, pushing against the encroaching ill intent with all the force he could muster. It was surprisingly effective. The chakra construct in front of him exploded and melted into formless gunk that sank into the water and withdrew quickly behind the bars. The QB gave an unexpected, ear-splitting roar of rage and pain. Naruto gasped and splashed over to the bars to look in. The QB was writhing, agitating the water as he twisted and nipped at the dark black vines growing from nowhere at an unbelievable rate, wrapping themselves around him and tightening painfully. Thorns sprouted and dug into his skin, eliciting more enraged roars. What is happening? Naruto said, panicked. As his fear spiked, the vines aggressively pulled the fox down to the floor, shaking the entire room with the impact. You're the one controlling these things, the QB spat out, tugging at the vines around his neck with long claws. If you don't calm down, this place really will eat me. Naruto watched, mouth slightly open, as the vines cruelly subjugated his longtime cellmate. His fear melted into mingling sympathy and guilt. He'd assumed the fox's complaints were just another ploy for control, but it looked like he was actually telling the truth. What should I do? Naruto asked hesitantly. This body is a low-quality clone of the Shodai Hokage. The QB snarled, continuing to struggle with the plants. It only attacks me when you resist the flow of my power. If you don't, it simply feeds off the energy, like earlier. So you're saying not to resist when you try to take me over? Yeah, I'd bet you like that. Naruto gave a snort. Arg. Just shut up and relax before I rip you to shreds. You're not being very convincing. Nevertheless, Naruto took several deep breaths and tried to relax his mind. It was difficult with the fox's agitated energy swirling in the air, waiting, perhaps, for him to drop his guard so it could consume him again. But even though he was frightened of the QB's power, The suggestion his body was some kind of freakish plant clone was even more disturbing. He'd heard the disquieted murmurs and speculations over the past few days. What if it was true? What if he really was some kind of creation? Madara had practically said as much. A particularly vicious snarl from the Kyuubi brought Naruto's attention back to the task at hand. He couldn't get his mind to stay clear. Concentration had never been his strongest asset, and the jumbled thoughts and noise made it nearly impossible. Naruto growled in frustration, a sound much less intimidating than the roars of struggle still coming from behind the bars. He opened his eyes. Maybe they weren't on the best terms, but he didn't want to imagine what would happen if the fox got eaten by those things. So since the relaxation idea wasn't working, Naruto did what he did best, and rushed headlong into the situation without a defined plan. Giving barely a pause at the edge of the bars, he ran through them into the fox's cell and grabbed one of the thick, thorn-ridden vines. He gave the vine an experimental tug, but had to jump back to avoid an angrily thrashing claw. "What do you think you're doing, idiot brat? Do you ever listen to anything? Your plan wasn't working out, so I had to try something else," Naruto shouted. "Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." He remembered belatedly there was no guarantee jutsu would work in this strange internal space. To his relief, a battalion of shadow clones appeared and swarmed all over the fox. Naruto grunted, tugging on the thickest vines around the Kyuubi's neck. They were keeping him tethered to the ground like a collar. "If these things really are made by me, then why can't I make them go away? You're sitting on my head," the Kyuubi growled in rage. "You should consider yourself fortunate I can't move, or I'd snap your little body in half. Just shut up already. I'm trying to help." Naruto drew a kunai from the pouch on his leg and tried to cut the vine, which was starting to solidify into a curved, root-like structure. He paused in his hacking and drew his hands away when he realized the vine was reacting to his touch. The living, squirming material became inanimate and solid. Naruto dug the blade into it with renewed determination. "Guys! Touch the vines! If they stop moving, I think you can cut through them," he called excitedly to his clones. "OSU! Okay, boss! Hey, I think it's working!" As the vines holding the Kyuubi started to crack and break, the fox stood and shook himself, snapping the brittle wooden chains and shaking off the hordes of Bunshin. "Whoa!" Naruto pitched forward and rolled down the fox's shoulder, landing ungracefully on the floor with a splash. He looked up from where he lay on his back, and the air whooshed out of him when the Kyuubi pressed a huge, clawed, hand-like paw on top of him. He was pinned helplessly, completely unable to move under its great weight. The fox lowered his bared teeth and turned one huge red eye to stare down at his host. It occurred to Naruto that coming into the Kyuubi's cage might have been a little too reckless. The few times they had met so far, their interactions had been punctuated with a heavy, threatening sense of urgency. There was usually no time to be afraid until after the fact, when everything had settled down and there was enough space to sift through the blurred, frantic memories. Just like now. He had simply acted, forgetting how small and weak he was compared with the vast powers of the nine-tailed demon fox, who, in fact, hated him. But there must have been something severely wrong with his sense of self-preservation, because suddenly all he could think of was the same great and powerful Kyuubi yelling at him for sitting on its head, and scolding him for not listening, and a bubbling feeling of laughter welled up in Naruto's chest at the absurdity of it all. He would have covered his mouth, but he couldn't move his arms. His face worked, and tears pricked the corners of his eyes as the exaggeratedly menacing expression on the fox's face threatened to push him over the edge. He just couldn't help it. The laughter burst out of him all at once, sounding high-pitched and giddy. "What are you laughing at?" the Kyuubi snarled incredulously, looking at him like he had a screw loose. "I don't know," Naruto gasped out as the pressure weighing him down increased, the laugh still spilling out of him in a strange staccato. I think I'm relieved. I know we don't exactly like each other, but you're the only other person from my time around, and I forgot you were stuck here, too." The fox paused, and lifted up his paw. Naruto blinked up at him in surprise. "Listen well, brat," he rumbled. "I have no intention of being stuck in this time, especially if it means being manipulated by the likes of Uchiha Madara." He spat the name as if it was a curse. "I don't believe for a second he's given up on using us, even if this body prevents him from drawing me out. You need to hurry up and find whoever can undo this jutsu and send us back. It seems I can't do it for you." Naruto, now freed, slowly got to his feet. He said it's the Edo Tensei zombie whatever version of the guy who destroyed the entire village and killed Ero Sennin. I can't just find somebody like that and ask for help. Besides, I have no idea what he looks like, and even Madara doesn't know where he is now. I don't even know where to start. And I can't leave this time knowing what Madara's plans are. The Kyuubi gave a frustrated sigh. Forget about Madara. Do you really think there's anything you can do to stop him? If you really care about it so much, the best thing you can do is go back and tell the people in our own time what he's planning. Leave things here to your older self and the others. My older self? Naruto said, eyes wide with sudden realization. Kyuubi, if there's an older version of me here, does that mean there's an older version of you too? Obviously. Though, 4 years hardly counts as older for me. You're pretty slow, aren't you? Naruto reddened slightly, but continued. I knew that, I just wasn't thinking about it that way. I mean, you're from my time, and you don't get what's going on in this time any better than I do. What's your point? Is there any way you could? I don't know, help me find Aniki and your older self? Sniff them out or something? We already know they're in the Lightning Country somewhere, so finding them might be easier than looking for some dead guy I don't know. They might know how to find him and how to fight him, if it comes to that. I'm sure they'd be willing to help, too. But Naruto frowned slightly. You don't look sure. The Kyuubi noted. He raised his head and looked around, as if listening. I can feel the presence of my other self, but I can't feel clearly where it is coming from. Wherever they are, it must be somewhere that completely masks their chakra. It is only because of our special connection that I can feel them at all. So, can they feel us? I don't know, a little maybe. The same way I can. The barrier probably blocks sensing in either direction. If they were to leave the barrier, their location would be like a beacon to me, and vice versa. He snorted. But I'm not so sure your older self will be of any help to us. They say you're something great now, but I haven't seen anything to back that up. A war is about to start, but where is he? And even I'm surprised your little Uchiha friend seems free to join Akatsuki. Naruto stiffened and glared up at the fox. There has to be more to it than that. I would never let Sasuke go along with people like them. Even if, he might have a reason for it. I'm sure there is more to it than that. The Kyuubi said in a patronizing tone, it's possible the older you is being completely led on by everyone, too, or maybe he's just too afraid to face him. I wouldn't blame him, after seeing what the kid did to you. Naruto turned around sharply and walked back out between the bars. You know, next time you think about talking to me, don't. Hey! The Kyuubi slammed against the gate, making it rattle. You might think it's harmless to stay here worrying about things that have nothing to do with you, but never forget how we got here in the first place. Everything has consequences, including, believe it or not, dangerous jutsu used on you by your enemy. Naruto cut off the conversation with the mental equivalent of a door slam and opened his eyes in reality. He made a face at the ceiling and sat up in bed. A quick glance around the room showed there was no one around, no one visible, anyway, he reminded himself. He didn't know how much the Wind Daimyo's paranoia had carried over into action over the past few days. Naruto let out an annoyed grumble and rubbed his eyes. He felt sluggish. Even after laying around with nothing to do but think, his head still felt like it could burst. Nothing had been resolved. This complicated situation was a lot harder to figure out than anything in his previous life, where he at least knew what a friend was and what an enemy was. Naruto and the Kyuubi had never had a real conversation before. It was different from what he'd expected. It was strange to think about the fox seeing and commenting on things in his life, or having any kind of personality at all beyond the scary evil demon-ness. The fox had been right on at least one point, though. Nothing good would come of just laying around. Naruto threw back his covers and got out of bed. He stood there for a while, staring at the faint outline of the doorway in the darkness. How was he supposed to face his friends? He didn't know what to feel about them. And they were probably going to ask what happened. He didn't want to lie, but he didn't want to tell them everything Madara had told him, either. But how else was he supposed to know if Madara had been telling the truth? I'll worry about that later. Naruto had heard Sai and Sakura leave to go to some kind of meeting. Maybe now was a good time to go around unnoticed. Naruto pulled on his shoes and peeked out into the hallway. He had no idea what time of day it was, since this floor was underground and lit dimly with lamps, but everything seemed quiet. He only made it a few steps toward the stairs when a man dressed in light armor appeared in front of him. The man unsheathed a sword that glowed with energy, but kept it lowered, not pointing directly at Naruto. He didn't seem like a Suna shinobi. Instead of a Suna Hittite, the swordsman's allegiance was marked by a red sash tied about his waist with the kanji for wind embroidered on it. Going somewhere, Ninetales? He challenged. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto answered with a glare, body tensing for a fight. And? Gaara told me I could go anywhere I want. If the Kazekage wasn't so sentimental, enough, that will do, a voice said from behind the swordsman. They both shifted their attention to the Wind Daimyo walking toward them, flanked from behind by 2 other guards. Naruto's heart leapt into his throat at the sight of him, more so than when he'd been stopped by the guard. He took a step backward, suddenly feeling very claustrophobic in the narrow hallway. He had no idea why he suddenly felt so uncomfortable. But the man's appearance in the hall now, when Naruto knew everyone else was at a meeting, made no sense whatsoever. What are you doing down here? Naruto said, trying to not sound too rude, but failing. The samurai noticed, and pointed the chakra-laden sword at him. But Yamaguchi just chuckled and walked closer, holding up his hand to stay the guard. The swordsman reluctantly sheathed his sword and stepped to the side, but his hand stayed resting near the hilt, and his suspicious gaze never left Naruto for an instant. There is no need to be alarmed, Yamaguchi said with a smile that crinkled the edges of his squinted eyes. Actually, I have been down here once a day since that unfortunate incident, but you must not have noticed. I came to see how you were recovering. It is a pleasant surprise to see you up and awake, I must say. But why? Naruto narrowed his eyes. Why would the most important person in the Wind Country bother to come see me? I thought you hate me, he added silently. His scowl probably gave it away. You underestimate your own importance, Yamaguchi replied in a kind but slightly condescending way, as if trying to soothe his self-esteem. After all, I would have to do a great deal more than simply exist in order to instigate a world war. Naruto didn't really know what to say to that, so he didn't answer at all. I assume you're looking for your friends? I can show you where they are. They will be relieved to see you are awake. He gestured toward the stairs. Naruto felt uneasy again. He did want to find them, but now that the daimyo suggested it himself, it was a slightly less appealing idea. He looked up at Yamaguchi with a scowl. And you don't mind hanging out with me with no one else around? No offense, but I doubt 3 of your guards would be much help if I decided to go all Kyuubi berserk on you. The guards tensed, and the original one stepped defiantly between Naruto and the daimyo, but the daimyo himself just laughed as if he'd heard a particularly witty joke. Tell me, Naruto-kun, he said, brushing the guard off to the side casually and stepping right up to him, dominating Naruto's field of vision with his wide frame. He looked down into his face seriously. Are you hungry? What? Naruto blinked. The question was so completely out of nowhere that he wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. I said, are you hungry? From what I understand, you haven't eaten anything since arriving in Suna, and that was a week ago. You've been unconscious for most of it. Well, yeah, I am now that you mention it, Naruto said slowly, confused. Actually, he realized, though he was pretty famished, it wasn't a week without food kind of famished. Interesting. I wonder if that is a phantom response generated by your mind, or if the adaptive abilities of the plant cells extend to imitating normal physiological functions. It has been made abundantly clear you at least have normal-appearing organs, whether their function is necessary or not, and somehow, you still have a heart that pumps blood. He pressed the pad of his thumb into the crook of Naruto's elbow from where blood was usually drawn. Naruto pulled away as if he'd been burned, glaring incredulously and wondering how severe the penalties might be if he decided to punch the Wind Daimyo in the face. I wonder, the daimyo continued softly, how much damage it would take to detach your soul from that body, or if you would just keep regenerating. Is that some kind of threat? Yamaguchi just looked down at him and smiled. I heard your friends saying they would let you eat as much ramen as you wanted when you woke up. Let's go tell them the good news. He turned and walked unhurriedly toward the stairs. Chapter 17, Start. Naruto followed the Wind Daimyo and his guard awkwardly. He glanced uneasily at the samurai surrounding the 2 of them, all clearly as tense as he felt. He sympathized with them, in a way. He would definitely hate his job if he had to hang around the daimyo all the time. So, Yamaguchi started. Naruto looked aside at him but didn't respond. He'd hoped Yamaguchi was done trying to carry on a conversation. But the man wasn't deterred by his silence. The 5 Kage sent you here because they assumed Uchiha Madara would attempt to steal your tailed beast. It's odd that Madara actually succeeded in capturing you, but left the tailed beast intact. Isn't it? What exactly did he want with you? Naruto felt a pang of anxiety. He wasn't ready for these questions just yet, especially from this particular person. But he couldn't refuse to answer outright. I don't know, he mumbled. He wanted to, but he said he couldn't get it from me. Oh? Was there anything else you two talked about? Naruto shrugged vaguely. And I hear you had a run-in with Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto tensed, and a strange mixture of sadness, anger, and apprehension welled up in his gut. What was Yamaguchi searching for? Yeah, he forced out after a long pause. You know, Yamaguchi said, so quietly he could have almost been talking to himself. They've all secretly convinced themselves that Madara used genjutsu on you, and nothing else happened. It wouldn't require much to keep them believing that. If, on the other hand, it's thought you may have learned about any of Konoha's darker secrets, the reason behind Uchiha Sasuke's defection, for example, you might find yourself so restrained that you never stand a chance of returning to your time. Naruto's head snapped up, and he glared at the Wind Daimyo. Aren't you the one making it so I can't even leave my room without people following me? And what do you know about Sasuke anyway? People expect a certain kind of behavior from me, and I'm not claiming to know anything about Uchiha Sasuke. But I understand a lot about how hidden villages work. Considering how slow Konoha has been to send hunters or even officially acknowledge his status as a missing nin, there is certainly more to his situation than meets the eye. He even assassinated an elder on Konoha's village council, and they haven't arrested him yet? Clearly there is something. He did what? Naruto said numbly. My point is, if you didn't really know it was true, do you think they'd tell you it was? If you firmly believed it was a lie made up by Madara, do you think they would correct you? Yes, Naruto said, stating it strongly to try to wipe the smirk off Yamaguchi's face. They're done trying to hide things from me. They wouldn't do that. It wouldn't be hiding, merely allowing you to carry on with a false belief. Are you sure you aren't the least bit curious? I don't like you, Naruto announced. I don't care if you are the Wind Daimyo. Good, you're finally being smart. Yamaguchi gestured mockingly toward an open archway that led to a sparsely furnished sitting room. They'd finally reached the end of the hall. Naruto went in ahead. Sai, Sakura, and Neji were sitting around a low square table with teacups, but they didn't seem to be socializing. They all looked preoccupied with their own thoughts. But when Naruto and his escorts walked in, they all looked up quickly. Naruto, you're up. Before he knew it, he was pulled into Sakura's embrace, her pink hair tickling his cheek and nose. In another situation he might have blushed, but he felt too stressed at the moment. You really had us worried, Sakura said, pulling back to search his face and peer critically into his eyes. How do you feel? How did he feel? Honestly, he had no idea. I don't know. A little weirded out, I guess. He was leaving his room when I met him, Yamaguchi said. He seemed a bit dazed, so I brought him along. Naruto looked back over his shoulder with a frown. Yamaguchi's expression was a perfectly diplomatic shade of concern. Sakura frowned as well, but for a different reason. She pulled a pen light from her medic pouch and clicked it on, shining it into each of Naruto's eyes briefly. Hey! Warn me before you're gonna do that, he grumbled, blinking and rubbing his eyes. She had already put the pen light away and straightened up to her full height. Naruto, she said gently, putting her hands on his shoulders. I don't want to ask this, but since your healing ability makes it impossible to tell through normal ways, do you remember if Madara used a genjutsu on you? I am not sure. He hedged, looking back nervously at Yamaguchi, and then at her. Did you see his Sharingan? Oh. Yeah. He remembered the red eye burning through the singular hole in the mask and felt uncertain for a moment. Was he completely sure it hadn't been an illusion? But what Yamaguchi said confirmed Sasuke's defection was real. And the rest of it had felt real, too. I don't think he used it. He had no reason to. Sakura's eyes darkened and she dropped her gaze. Sorry about all of this, she said quietly. You're safe now, and that's what matters. Naruto wanted to ask her right then. He wanted to look her in the eyes and demand to know everything that had happened to Sasuke. He wanted to know if the third had really and truly ordered Itachi to kill the Uchiha clan. But it all got stuck in the back of his throat. It was too unbelievable, And how would he know if the answer was the truth or a lie? She had promised, but no. Trusting his friends was the one thing he would always do. But the prospect of being proven wrong on that point was frightening. He'd never envisioned a situation where believing one of his friends would conflict with believing in the others. No, he said quietly, stepping away from her grasp. I want to know about it now. Madara said Sasuke was there of his own free will, but all of you said he was off on a mission somewhere. You're the ones who should know if it was real or not. So, which is it? Where is Sasuke? Sakura froze, her eyes wide and her hands trembling, still poised in the air. Where is Sasuke? He repeated a little louder. Naruto. Neji walked toward them. He held his palms open, beseeching. A lot of things happened, it's hard to just. How could you just leave him there? We're a team, we're supposed to look out for one another. Naruto's voice rose to a yell. He hadn't meant to start. He had been completely ready to say yes, he wanted to wait, he wanted to put the conversation off for later, anything to avoid it. But when he actually opened his mouth, it was like a pressure valve opened and he couldn't hold it back. Why didn't I stop him? Why am I off doing something else like I don't even care? Does my older self even know he's gone, or has everyone been lying to him, too? You, Bachan, the older me, Kakashi-sensei, did everyone just decide to let Sasuke join Madara's side and get himself killed fighting the entire rest of the world? No. Sakura choked. We tried so hard. You don't understand. As Sasuke, he's not the same person anymore. He's done too much now. The last thing we want is for him to be our enemy, but, Naruto. Sai said seriously, touching Sakura briefly on the shoulder to interrupt her. Sasuke is an internationally wanted criminal. He tried to abduct the Reikige's younger brother, the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki. We had no choice but to join everyone else in condemning Akatsuki, or we would be inherently responsible for Sasuke's actions, and risk war with Kumo as a result. It's out of our hands now. Does Aniki know about this? Naruto asked stubbornly. They looked at one another, clearly trying to figure out the best way to get him to calm down. The guard was getting restless. They obviously feared him going out of control. Naruto knew it was foolish to make a scene in front of the people who already wanted to lock him up, but anger was overriding his sense. He knows, Sakura said softly, holding his gaze. He's training and getting stronger right now so he can save Sasuke. He refuses to give up on him, even if everyone else does. Naruto suddenly felt really tired. He heard the swordsman behind him shift uncomfortably and realized there was no point in continuing to demand the truth if he couldn't even let himself believe the answers. He lowered his eyes. I guess I just don't understand, after all. I don't understand how this could have happened. Looking relieved and pained at the same time, Sakura said. None of us do. Hashige Kisame was not fond of losing, and he wasn't fond of sneaky tricks in battle either. Leave the fine-tuned deception and manipulation to people like Itachi. Give him a straight-up, beat-down brawl any day. Yet he knew how to deceive with the best of them. It was once part of his job, after all. Though never particularly charismatic or personable, no one in Kiri ever expected it when he stabbed them in the back to keep the village's secrets intact. And now, for the second time in just a matter of weeks, he had escaped death by faking it. He was currently laying on his stomach in a shallow cave on the sea, near the coast of the Land of Lightning. Alive, but not in great shape. His battle with the strange green beast of Konoha and the others had left him completely drained. Worse, he had lost his sword, so he couldn't recover his chakra quite as quickly as he might have been able to otherwise. He had been fully prepared to die in that battle. Akatsuki was all he had left to be loyal to, after all, or so he thought. Kisame finished writing the scroll laying in front of him, then rolled it up and secured it with a bit of twine. It was a second draft. The first had been sent out when he was still fighting against the team from Konoha, but there'd been a change of plans. He stretched his long arm out to the edge of the water and put the scroll in the little shark's mouth. It swam away dutifully and Kisame gave a small, sharp-toothed smile. It will be a pleasure to work with you again, Itachi-san, he said. Sasuke woke unexpectedly. He was by no means a censor type. Compared to someone like Karen, he was a novice in that department, but he suddenly felt a heavy, cold presence nearby. As he lay in his bed listening, keeping his breathing even, sleep slowly lifted from his mind and he cast out his senses as far as they would go. It soon became obvious. He could sense the large, cold chakra because the person was making no effort whatsoever to mask it. He knew that presence. That chakra was almost as familiar to him as his own. It had been part of his own for 4 years. Orochimaru. Sasuke threw back the covers and put his feet on the cold stone floor. He made his way carefully out the bedroom and into the adjacent lab where the Sharingan eyes were stored. He had never seen his room or the lab before, but he still knew them like the back of his hand. There had been plenty of time to become acquainted with his surroundings. Sasuke paused at the back of the lab, lingering where several large shelves stood. He could hear voices coming from up ahead, around the tanks. He had no idea if he could be seen where he was standing, but it didn't matter. He wasn't trying to hide. Orochimaru was speaking. No one among the Wind Daimyo's group knows where he is. Only the Kazekage himself and a select few others are privy to that information. Kisame's information was not very precise, Toby said thoughtfully. There was a rustle of paper. He must have been under quite a bit of pressure before dying, if the scattered nature of his message is any indication. That's neither here nor there to me. Orochimaru started, but then he paused. Sasuke stiffened. He'd been noticed, but instead of commenting on his presence, Orochimaru simply continued. As long as you draw attention away from Suna and Konoha, I don't care if you go after him now or later. Don't get carried away. After improving the Zetsu, I still need you to revive the Jinchuriki. Oh? Have recovered it then? The Rinnegan? Sasuke walked toward their voices, tired of being ignored. Orochimaru. What are you doing here? My sympathies, Orochimaru said in a conversational tone, as if he hadn't been interrupted. You've probably come to realize how impetuous he can be sometimes. I personally find it an endearing trait. As for the Rinnegan, I haven't retrieved it yet. The allied shinobi forces are gathering near Kumogakure, so I will focus on launching the Zetsu first. How did you survive? Sasuke demanded, stepping closer to where, by his best judgment, Orochimaru stood. Itachi sealed you with the sword of Tatsuka. Oh, Sasuke-kun. You may be blind, but surely you haven't lost your memory. Orochimaru finally turned to him, sounding amused. You saw for yourself that I'm never really gone, as long as a part of me exists somewhere. I need to conclude my business here quickly, so unless you have something worthwhile to contribute. Toby told me you're helping him in exchange for his cooperation with this time-summoning jutsu. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? No need for jealousy. This side project doesn't mean I'm no longer interested in you. Simply put, there was a jutsu I managed to complete after a long time, so of course I had to test it out right away. It's not that, Sasuke said. I don't want you interfering with my revenge against Konoha. Are going after them now? I suppose that means you know the truth about Itachi then. I'm not terribly concerned with Konoha at the moment. I will be more than happy to sit back and watch what you do instead, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke paused. You knew? Of course. Is that a surprise? Sasuke couldn't see his expression, but he could imagine the snake's knowing smirk. He struggled to hold down his temper. He knew it wouldn't do any good to fly into a rage against Orochimaru in his weakened state, not to mention he was wary now of attacking blindly. But it was difficult not to throw out the obvious accusation. Orochimaru had known, yet allowed and even assisted him in throwing years of his life away in pursuit of killing the one person he had love left in his heart for. No, it's not a surprise at all. Sasuke smiled bitterly. Orochimaru laughed. If you want revenge on me now, you'll have to destroy my new project. Though it won't be easy. That child holds one of the most intriguing possibilities for immortality I've seen. Orochimaru, Toby interrupted. Shouldn't you be getting back before someone notices? The last thing we need is the Kazekage to delay his departure. Yes. Until next time, Sasuke-kun. Yamato knew right away he had his work cut out for him. The kid looked so small and young it was almost funny. Of course, Yamato knew full well there were plenty of shinobi his age and younger. Hell, he'd been one of them. What made it humorous was the less than intimidating glare the miniature version of his subordinate was currently giving him. You smell like an old guy, worse than Kakashi-sensei, he said obstinately. Are you really supposed to be my bodyguard when everyone leaves? Yamato fought down the urge to use intimidation tactics to get some respect out of the brat. From what he heard, the younger Naruto had been through a tough time recently. A little kindness was needed. Yes, I am. You can call me Yamato. As you've probably heard, I am the captain of Team Kakashi whenever Kakashi-senpai is on another mission, or gets himself put up in the hospital. I was just overseeing your older self's training. I guess that's what I'm doing here too, making sure nothing strange happens while you are training with the toads. He cleared his throat. By the way, I am younger than Kakashi-senpai. You were just with Aniki? Naruto lowered his crossed arms. Yamato looked quizzically at the rest of the team. Sakura and Sai were there to help with introductions, though it wasn't proving too helpful so far. That's what he calls his older self, Sai explained. Oh. Yes, Yamato told him awkwardly. And I have to say, it's pretty strange to see you after that. You sure hit a growth spurt at some point. He held his hand out at the approximate height of the older Naruto. Naruto stood from where he had been sitting on the edge of his bed. I don't need someone like you to help me with my training. I know you're really here to keep me from getting away, or going out of control while everyone's gone. Just like with Aniki, right? But I don't have to listen to you. Naruto! Sakura exclaimed. Hey, just calm down. Yamato made to touch his shoulder, but Naruto substituted himself with a flower vase from the bedside table, which fell and broke on the floor, soaking Yamato's shoes with water. Naruto hopped down from the bedside table and dashed for the door, only stopping when Sai caught him by the wrist. Let me go! Naruto growled, pulling out of Sai's grip. You fake! You're not my teammate or my friend! You're not Sasuke! Sai's eyes widened. He was caught off guard enough to stand still as Naruto turned and ran out. And here I thought he might be the easier of the two to deal with. Yamato sighed, carefully picking up the broken shards of vase off the floor. He seems to know a lot about what's going on. Yes, Sakura said guiltily. I'm not sure what Madara was trying to do, but if his goal was to upset Naruto, he did a good job. We were getting along well until all this happened. Yes. That may have been his goal, if he's really not able to steal that version of the Kyuubi, Yamato said darkly, depositing the ceramic pieces into a small bin beside the table. Is it alright for Naruto to go storming off like that? He won't be left unfollowed, but we should make sure he doesn't do anything like pick a fight with the Suna Anbu or the Daimyo's guard. Sakura walked to the door. She paused beside Sai and touched his arm. He didn't mean it, you know. I know. I suppose it was inevitable, once he was made aware of the truth. Yamato scratched his head. This was going to take some strategy. A rare break in the rain bathed the tips of Amageku's famous skyscrapers with warm evening light. The city sprawled beneath Conan's feet, breathtaking as always. The wind flapped and tossed her black coat emblazoned with red clouds. The vastness was lonely sometimes, but this was her favorite view of the city, nevertheless. Today, the pause in the rain was a simple gift from nature. The discarded raindrops dripped from balconies and overhangs, glimmering in faceted colors when they met the sun. It was a good omen. It's just about that time, Conan thought, a smile curling her lips. She turned and walked inside, pulling the flapping edges of the coat around her. Kuchios no Jutsu! Naruto slammed his hand down on the stucco roof of Suna's administration building, but nothing happened. He sighed and sat down on the edge of the roof. Worth a try. His chakra and blood had changed just enough to disrupt his connection with the summoning contract, so he hadn't entirely expected it to work. No good, huh? Naruto looked up with a scowl that faded into surprise when he saw Gaara standing beside him. Naruto whirled his head back to glance behind Gaara, but was even more surprised to see no one else had followed him. He turned back to the desert horizon and curled his arms around his knees. I don't think Akatsuki is coming after me again, Naruto mumbled. So I don't really need someone to guard me anymore. What makes you say that? Gaara sat down beside him. Well, it's true, isn't it? They had me, and let me go. Guarding me isn't about protecting me anymore, it's about protecting other people from me, in case I'm working with the enemy. I mean, I can't say I blame you. But if everyone is going to be suspicious of me, then I wish they wouldn't be so nice. It makes it harder to be mad at them. Gaara was about to answer, but suddenly a loud poof sounded and a cloud of smoke appeared on Naruto's other side. Almost instantly, thick tendrils of sand hovered protectively all around Naruto, daring any threat to try passing them. Hey! Did you happen to call, little bro? Naruto blinked at the sight of the red and blue toad sitting beside him, holding a webbed hand up in greeting. Jigamakichi? Is that you? Naruto got to his feet. Even standing, the toad was taller than he was. Wow, you got big. Does this mean my summoning worked? Not exactly, Gamakichi said. I just kind of got a funny feeling in my stomach a minute ago, and I heard about the trouble Fukasaku-sama had getting in touch with you before. So I decided to follow my stomach, and here I am. The sand floating around Naruto retreated into Gaara's gourd. Naruto had no doubt it could reappear to protect him nearly as quickly as it could for Gaara himself. So, what's up? Gamakichi prompted. Oh, right. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. I wanted to ask Sannin-ji-chan if I could start training soon. There is this old guy Yamato that's supposed to watch over my training. He finally got here, so I want to start as soon as possible. Should be fine on our end. But are they really gonna let you go the mountain after what happened before? Gamakichi looked curiously at Gaara. As long as Yamato-san is able to go along, yes. Gaara said. Oh ho. Awesome. You know, even the old man was saying we probably lost the chance to hang out with you. I'll let everyone know. What time should we come pick you up? Gamakichi bobbed excitedly. They both looked at Gaara. Naruto put on the most beseeching, puppy-eyed look he could muster. You can start tomorrow, Gaara began. Naruto let out a whoop and jumped up and down and gave Gamakichi a high five, grinning all the while. Not even the current situation could dampen his excitement over new training. Gaara cleared his throat. You will not be staying there, though. You can train there in the day, as long as you come back to Suna every evening. All what? Naruto whined. But if that Mokuaji is going to be with me, why do I have to come back here? It's boring here. He didn't mention how much he preferred not to risk being alone with the Wind Daimyo again. Yamato-sen must be here to make regular reports on your training and the situation within Suna. That is the order of the Hokage. It is for the best. Everyone will worry less if you come back here often. I understand, I guess, Naruto grumbled. Shimo-basin is gonna be so excited when she hears, Gamakichi said. I'm going to go tell everyone. I'll see you tomorrow, little bro. The toad clapped his hands together and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto stretched. I guess it could be worse. If I'm training, at least I'm doing something. He knew Gaara could have easily refused to let him go. Many other Kage in his situation would have done just that. The training itself was an unknown, too. But it was something. It was a start. Chapter 18, Friends. 2 weeks passed. As Naruto began his training, signs of the upcoming war became more and more apparent. The last batch of troops would soon depart for Allied Shinobi Force headquarters, leaving behind the minimum necessary for Suna's defense. Their tools and supplies were sent ahead, and now that almost all of it had arrived safely, the only thing that remained was for the shinobi themselves to leave. All this happened on the periphery of his awareness. Naruto spent as much time as possible at Mount Myaboku. Training gave him a sense of purpose, even though he still didn't know what he was going to do. Being stronger would help no matter what happened. Taking a new power home when he returned was an exciting prospect, too. But he saw the others less because of it. They always ate together in the evening, sometimes with one of the Sand siblings in their own apartments, sometimes out on the town. Naruto was glad for any meal that offered more edible fare than Shimaba's home cooking, but it was still awkward. He was stuck between being angry and wanting to make up. He knew they hadn't meant to hurt him. But they were bound to keep disagreeing over his older self's exclusion in the war. At Suna, he mostly stayed in his room. Things on Mount Myaboku were a lot simpler and happier. Fukasaku alternated between sage training and the basics of frog kata, the taijutsu form specialized for sage mode. Unfortunately, they could only talk about the more advanced moves in theory, because many of them were physically impossible in a normal state. They wouldn't get very far until he could actually use sage mode. Naruto sat in the shade of a gigantic leaf, meditating, trying his best to master stillness. Yamato sat on the grass nearby, leaning back against the stalk of a freakishly large fern. Fukasaku stood ready with his stick beside Naruto. So far there hadn't been any signs of a transformation, whether good or bad, and it was getting harder and harder for Naruto to sit still without complaint. Perhaps it was to be expected, but the first step was already taking longer than it had for his older self. Naruto's eyes snapped open and he flopped backward onto the grass with a very loud and frustrated groan. I know I can do this. Are you sure I can't do it the way Aniki did? We should try some of that toad oil stuff, at least. I told you it's too risky, Naruto-chan, Fukasaku said. The purpose of the oil is to draw natural energy to you, so you can sense and take it in more easily. But you are attracting a lot of energy already. Any more would be dangerous. It's dangerous now. Naruto sat up and crossed his arms. I still don't really understand. How do I use it, even if I was able to sense it? Do I just take a big breath and hope it goes in through my nose, or what? Fukasaku scratched his head with a sigh and then put his hands in a ram's seal. You learned about advanced chakra manipulation with the Rasengan, right? You already know how to focus your chakra to a specific point, and how to control other variables like power level and rotation. If I remember correctly, you also learned how to mix wind element energy with all of that. Eh? Not yet, Yamato interjected from where he sat, shaking his head. He learned how to use Futon a short time before his original sage training. That was also the first time he used the Kage Bunshin to accelerate training. Fukasaku mumbled. You have even less experience than I thought. Nevertheless, as I explained at the beginning, you need to combine the natural energy with your normal physical and spiritual energies. It's much like other types of chakra manipulation, except part of what you are using comes from outside of yourself, rather than from inside. Wait. Naruto waved his arms. Back up a minute. I can use Futon? Can you guys teach me how to do that too? It may be better for you to learn Sage Mode first this time, Yamato said. The jutsu you created from adding Futon to your Rasengan ended up being unsafe to use without Sage Mode. Besides, it's easy to find someone to teach you how to use your element. If we have time after you get the hang of it, I can get you started on chakra nature manipulation. Okay. I misjudged you, Mokuaji. You are alright. So it was with that added incentive that Naruto settled back into his meditation pose. As it always did, training lasted until well in the evening. Yamato continued watching Naruto thoughtfully. This version was every bit as enthusiastic and dedicated to his training as the older one was, but in most other situations, the two were more different than he expected. Instead of the bright, loud, unfailingly confident shinobi he had come to know, the younger Naruto pulled pranks with bitter bravado and sulked in his room whenever he was made to go back to Suna. Yamato could tell the boy was struggling to accept the way things were in this time, and tried covering up his sense of hurt and betrayal with impudent behavior. It was immature, certainly, but it was undoubtedly a pattern he reverted to in order to protect himself. When Naruto's thoughts were wholly concerned with training, he forgot the act and seemed a little more like the young man he would become. That was why Yamato regretted it later that evening when it was time to break the news. Yamato stood from the grass and walked silently to where Naruto was sitting, face scrunched with a look of utmost concentration. A miraculous effort, considering he'd been doing nothing but meditation all day and was clearly sick of it by now. Yamato was about to speak up softly, but stopped when he noticed something was finally happening. A bright orange pigment brushed over Naruto's closed eyelids as if painted on by an invisible hand, and Yamato held his breath. Fukasaku stared intently, stick at the ready. Naruto frowned, his lower lip sticking out slightly as he struggled. Suddenly his cheeks and hands poofed out rapidly, expanding to a comical, unnatural size in the span of a single blink. Ack! Naruto cried as he face-planted to the ground, courtesy of a hard thwack to the back of the head from the training stick. He sat up quickly, rubbing the back of his head. Oh wow! What the hell, Saninji-chan? I think I finally felt something that time. Yes. Fukasaku smiled widely. You were finally able to tap into the natural energy that time, though it overwhelmed you very quickly. I'm proud of you, Naruto-chan. Congratulations, Yamato added with a warm smile. Naruto rubbed the back of his head again, flushed with success, looking more sheepish and happy than pained this time. Yeah, I felt it. I don't know what happened, but what you said about the Rasengan reminded me what Ero-sennin taught me about concentration. I finally get what you were saying about having to balance the energies. It's really hard, but I know what to expect now. Yosh! I'm ready to start training with Kage Bunshin so I can speed up my progress. Alright. But we'll start with just one. As I suspected, it seems the natural energy overwhelms you more quickly than normal once you lose the balance. We have to be careful. Predictably enough, Naruto started to complain, but Yamato interjected before he could get too far. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to go back to Suna now. What? Naruto scowled without missing a beat. I just started to get the hang of this natural energy thing. Why can't we stay a little longer today? It's still early. Yamato sighed. This could be difficult. That's true, but there's a reason for it. Everyone is leaving, And we need to go back now if you want to see them before they're gone. Naruto stared at him wide-eyed. What? What do you mean, leaving? Leaving for good? This has been the scheduled day of departure for a little while. There were some who thought it would be better if you didn't know until after the fact, but we negotiated that you would at least be able to see everyone off. You want to, don't you? Naruto stood up. Of course, he said roughly. It won't completely make up for it, but I can't let them leave without saying goodbye. They barely made it back to Suna in time. Team 7 Niji and the Sand siblings all lingered at the back, a large group of shinobi just outside Suna's great entranceway. Everyone else was chatting, reading maps, hydrating, or checking their equipment one last time before the start. Gaara was the first to notice them. He turned from the others and watched as Yamato and Naruto approached. The rest stopped talking to follow his line of sight. They all looked relieved. Naruto. Sakura trotted up to him. He was surprised when she swept him into a hug, but she let go before he had a chance to respond. I'm sorry we didn't tell you when we were leaving. The daimyo's people didn't want you knowing any information, but we all knew it'd be worse if we left without saying goodbye, so Gaara put his foot down. I'm sorry, too, he mumbled. He looked from face to face. Sakura, Sai, and Niji were all wearing Konoha flak vests. It made them look so grown up and official, and he felt the gap between them even more acutely. He was always terrible with goodbyes, but this was probably the worst he'd faced so far. It wasn't like when he made new friends on missions and had to return home. His friends were going to war, and he had to stay behind. He'd been mad at them, and for good reason. But they could die. They could die and leave him alone, and he could be stuck in this terrible future for all anyone knew, and… Don't worry about us. Sakura gave a reassuring smile. We won't go down easily. More importantly, keep yourself safe, okay? It's not right. Everyone's going off to fight, and I have to sit back here. You know I can't. I know. And that was all they could really say. They'd argued about it enough. Naruto, take this. Sai stepped forward and held a small green scroll toward him. He took the scroll and unrolled it a little. It was completely blank. Thanks? If you open this scroll to one of my Chojugiga, the ink will lay on it and display whatever I sent. Usually I need at least some idea of where I am sending a message, but the seal at the center of this scroll is imbued with my chakra, and they should be able to seek it out. That way, it could find you even on Mount Maiboku. I can send you reports as often as you want. Though, you won't be able to answer. Thanks, Sai. Naruto said awkwardly, putting the scroll in his tool pouch. For the record, I'm sorry I said you weren't my friend. And for ignoring you and everyone else. You're kind of a weird guy, but you're nice in your own way. Don't worry. We'll finish the war before your pea-brained older self can get out and ruin everything. And maybe by the time we come back, you'll have grown a little taller. Hey! Naruto scowled. Don't mess it up now. Sai just laughed. It was hard to tell sometimes if he was being serious, or using his own strange sense of humor. Niji. Naruto turned to him. Go out there and show them what a branch house member can do. Of course. Niji answered with a confident smirk. Gaara. Naruto felt more awkward than ever, but now wasn't the time to worry about sounding ridiculous. I didn't say it before, but I was really happy when I found out you became Kazekage. Knowing where you came from, and I can't imagine what you had to go through after that, just to reach where you are. I know it must have been really. Gaara held out his hand, smiling faintly. Naruto blinked. I know. You're not really good with this kind of stuff, right? He said. Right. Naruto laughed, shaking Gaara's hand. Try not to give Baki-sensei too many headaches while we're gone. Temari smirked and leaned forward conspiratorially. But between you and me, feel free to use your natural powers of annoyance on anyone trying to butt in on Suna's governance. OSU. Naruto saluted, grinning. Good luck, everyone. All of you better come back alive, or I'll beat the crap out of you when I go back to the past, and make you train with me every day so you don't do anything stupid like that again. They all agreed, and whether it was only to humor him or not, Naruto didn't care. He wanted them to remember him. When everyone was done saying goodbye, Gaara and his siblings made their way to the front of the group and led them away. Yamato and Naruto stood behind and watched until the group had disappeared completely behind the horizon. The next day was gloomy, both figuratively and literally. Rare rain clouds hung over Suna from early in the morning, hovering ominously and blocking out much of the usual sun that baked the clay streets during the day. Even though the parting group hadn't been all that large, the town felt strange and empty with most shinobi gone. As usual while in Suna, Naruto felt antsy to leave. Yamato had brought him to the local ramen place to try cheering him up, despite Naruto's protests that he wanted to get back to training as soon as possible. Mokuaji, you know I don't need to eat anyway, because of this weird plant body of mine. More importantly, I finally made progress in my training yesterday. There's still plenty of time before Fukasaku-sama comes to fetch us. Yamato steered him into the ramen bar. Do I really have to ask if you'd rather eat ramen, or hang out in the administration building with the daimyo's guard? Naruto mumbled his assent. By now, of course, most of Suna's civilians were aware of the presence of Konoha's Jinchuriki in their midst. Torn between the gratitude they felt toward his older self, and a fear driven by associating him with a younger Gaara, they were wary but tentatively friendly. The ramen place the Konoha group had frequented lately wasn't as nice as Ichiraku's, but it made up for it with interesting varieties and warm service. The old lady that ran the shop was even friendlier than most of the population, since she had gotten to know the Naruto of this timeline, and was very fond of him. Good morning, Naruto-chan, Yamato-san, she greeted as they stepped in. Is it just you two today? Yes, Yamato said as they settled in at the bar. The rest of our group left for the Lightning Country yesterday evening. Oh dear, that is right. I suppose there really is no stopping this war now. I had hoped that I would never live to see Suna involved in another war. But this time, we are all allies. If anything good can come from this, it would be the strengthening of our ties and hope for everyone to get along better in the future. True. Naruto didn't say anything. He just put his elbow on the bar and his cheek in one hand, tracing imaginary spirals on the counter with his other hand. How is your training going, Naruto-chan? The proprietress asked kindly. Good. He sat up a little more. Actually, I made a huge step yesterday right before we came back. I probably would have mastered it by now if Mokuaji let me stay longer. Her eyes crinkled. If you do your best, I'm sure you will get it very soon, even with your time constraints. You said it. Something like that isn't gonna hold me back. Ah, now then, I want to get. Hey, Mokuaji, is it alright if I get the deluxe with the tempura desert radish and. Naruto trailed off when he noticed Yamato was turned around on his stool and looking out into the street. Mokuaji? Yamato stood and lifted the curtain in the entranceway so he could see. Naruto got up and stood beside him to see what he was looking at. A group of 5 Suna shinobi were walking down the street, heading toward the administration building. That alone would have been slightly unusual, given there were few shinobi left in town, and the ones that remained guarded the village's perimeter and entryways. They looked distinctly uneasy and kept glancing at one another, as well as the woman in the center of the group. Her hands were tied behind her back, and another kunoichi walked close behind her, pointing a kunai at the back of her neck. What is going on? Naruto asked. An intruder? Yamato wondered out loud, eyes narrowed. No. The situation looks too quiet for that. The woman wore a wide light-colored wrap typical of Suna, and it draped down her front and back the way Temari often wore it, but she was clearly an outsider. Underneath the wrap she wore a form-fitting purple top with mesh sleeves ending at her elbows, black shorts, and tall purple boots. Her hair was a paler shade of lavender, tied on top of her head in a little bun, and adorned with a delicately folded paper rose. As if sensing their gaze, she turned her head to look at them. Her golden amber eyes rested on Naruto for just long enough not to be incidental before looking away again. Despite her hands being tied, she seemed completely calm. It looks like they're taking her to Baki-san, Yamato said. We should go, too. I get the feeling we'll be called in to vouch for her soon anyway. What? Why, do you know who that is? Naruto asked curiously. I've never met her in person, so I didn't recognize her at first, but I've seen her file. That's the current leader of Amigekure, S-rank kunoichi and former member of Akatsuki, Konan. What? By the time they reached the office where Baki carried out his duties as the stand-in leader of Suna, all but 2 of the escorts had been dismissed to go back to their posts. All that remained was the kunoichi holding Konan at knife point, and another shinobi standing on her other side. Baki was sitting behind the desk, looking tense, and Yamaguchi was watching the scene from the sidelines with his beady eyes fully open. Our intel suggests you are indeed the leader of Amigekure, but it's also well known that you and your hidden village were formerly affiliated with Akatsuki. It would be sheer idiocy to allow your people to watch after him. The allied shinobi force has already agreed this is the best place. I'm sorry, but it is completely out of the question, Baki said. Excuse us, Yamato said to get their attention. What is going on? Yamato-san. Baki gave him a disconcerted glance. I am not fully up on Konoha's alliances with smaller countries. Maybe you will have a better understanding as to why AIM would find it within their rights to offer another hiding place for Konoha's Jinchuriki. What was that? Yamato said. Konan turned around as much as she could and inclined her head in a small, polite bow. It is as he says. I have heard about the situation here with Naruto, including his recent capture at the hands of Uchiha Madara. I have been monitoring Madara's activities very closely ever since I assumed leadership of Amigakure. I believe Naruto would be safer in AIM than in Suna. Our forces are powerful, and more importantly, they are all at home. It's well known that no one can enter AIM undetected. Madara most of all. Why would you offer something like this? Yamato asked. AIM is neutral, not part of the alliance. You aren't even officially friends with Konoha, even though we have a non-aggression agreement. AIM does have an allegiance, not with Konoha, but with Uzumaki Naruto himself. Konan explained calmly. Eh? Naruto was terribly confused. It is strange that the leader of a hidden village would come by themselves to make a visit like this, leaving their village unattended. Yamaguchi put in. I'm sure many small countries would do anything to get their hands on a bijou, but to go this far? Konan examined him coolly. AIM is capable of getting along without me for a few days. I will not be away long. They stared at one another for an uncomfortably long time. Naruto had the distinct feeling something was going on above his head here. No matter what you say, we can't let Naruto-kun go with you, Baki said. We have the situation under control here already, and he has his training. And if he wanted to come to AIM instead? Konan asked. Would it be so unthinkable to ask his opinion on it? Everyone turned reflexively to look at Naruto. Hold on a minute. He held up his hands. I guess I know you in this time or something, but right now I have no idea who you are. Mokuaji said you used to be in Akatsuki, so I don't even understand how you can just be here. The boss toad of Mount Myaboku told me Amigakure was where Akatsuki's leader lived. Yes, Konan said. Akatsuki was originally ours, but it was corrupted by Madara. Our loyalty was always to what it originally represented, a new era of peace for AIM and the world. We lost our way, it is true. But your older self helped us remember our original ideals, an ideal that has been entrusted to you. You also convinced the Hokage to absolve AIM of its previous connections to Akatsuki. Even Madara would tell you that Nagato and I betrayed him. Nagato. That name struck a chord in his memory. Madara had said they had similar ideals. That was the person he was supposed to find. If Konan knew him, maybe she knew where he could be found? Naruto didn't want to ask her in front of everyone else. He nodded. If the older me accepts AIM isn't on Madara's side, that is good enough for me too. And I don't have to be here to do my training anyway. I think it would be fun to go. What? Hold on a minute. Yamato spluttered. Tsunade-sama ordered you to stay here. You can't go off somewhere else just because it sounds fun. Then ask her if I can go. It shouldn't be a problem then. That's not the real issue here. Then what is? Naruto asked stubbornly. Naruto. Baki rubbed his forehead. You and Yamato-san are meeting with Fukasaku-sama soon, aren't you? Why don't you go ahead and start your training for the day, and let us talk about this some more. What, so I don't get any say in it at all? Naruto rose his voice. The more Baki resisted the idea, the more he found himself wanting to go along with it. You go on ahead, Naruto, Konan said calmly. Don't worry, I'll still be here when you get back. Even though she was speaking to him, she was looking at the wind daimyo again with a polite smile. Yamaguchi stared back at her blankly. Okay. Naruto turned to leave, only pausing once at the door to look back at them. Yamato sighed in relief and followed after him. Naruto's concentration was completely shot. There was practically nothing to show for the previous day's progress. Fukasaku tapped the training stick against his own shoulder. Naruto-chan, you're lacking focus. Maybe it's time to try balancing on the precipices to improve your stillness. You're only letting me train with one Kage-bunshin. Naruto countered irritably. Maybe if you'd let me use more, like Aniki, increasing the number of beings that cannot sit still will do nothing. What's the matter? You seem agitated today, Say, Senjishin, Naruto said suddenly, opening his eyes to stare at Fukasaku. If I were to go to another village, I'd still be able to come here to do my training, right? Eh? It turns out, I was offered a place to stay in Amigakure. So if I go there, I wouldn't have to stay in Suna with people hanging over me anymore. Amigakure? Fukasaku spluttered. What on? Why would you want to go there? After what I told you about Jiraiya-chan, I didn't forget, Naruto said quietly. I just feel like everyone is going off to war. There is no one left in Suna I care about staying for. I don't like being around the Wind Daimyo, and most of the people in Suna are halfway afraid of me, and maybe in AIM, I can find more clues about how to get back to my own time. Eh? How do you figure that? It's just a gut feeling I have. AIM may have been where Jiraiya died, but it was also where Pain lived. If there was anywhere he might find clues about the resurrected Nagato, it was AIM. And Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, Konan knew what he was looking for. Of course, he couldn't explain his reasoning without revealing that Madara told him everything about who Nagato was, and about how to undo the jutsu keeping him in this timeline. Everyone thought that the only thing Madara had told him about was Sasuke. I can see why staying in Suna may be uncomfortable for you, Yamato commented. But going to AIM is too risky. It's very secure against outsiders, true, but that includes the allied shinobi force as well as Akatsuki. Good. The only thing I can do right now is search for a way back home. The Alliance has enough on its hands with the war, so it's better if they don't have to keep up with me. Yamato sighed. I don't completely disagree, but the chances of the ASF agreeing to this are very small. Depending on the circumstances, I could actually see Tsunade-sama allowing it. But you shouldn't get your hopes up. We already have things worked out with Suna, so it's unlikely she will find it necessary or appropriate to change plans. Naruto wasn't listening. He was already animatedly discussing possibilities for continuing his sage training in Amigakure with Fukasaku,